Welcome to our basic course on PHP. So what is PHP? PHP is a server-side scripting language embedded in HTML. In its simplest form, PHP allows web developers to create dynamic content and interact with databases. HP, which is Hypertext Processor, is a general-purpose scripting language and interpreter that is freely available and widely used for web development. The language is used primarily for server-side scripting, although it can also be used for command-line scripting and, to a limited degree, desktop applications. What is the purpose of PHP? PHP is mostly used for making web servers. It runs on the browser and is also capable of running in command line. So if you don't feel like showing your code output in the browser, you can show it in the terminal, which is going to be your text editor and also your browser. In this course, we will learn about how we will be able to run a server. Obviously, there are a couple of softwares and also a couple of services that you need to run a PHP. Then we are going to learn about running a server, because without a server, you will not be able to open up your PHP file. Then we are going to learn about how to open localhost. So that is also a part of your server. Without your localhost, you will not be able to open up your PHP. Then how to use the PHP language. Just like we saw on HTML and CSS, there's also a couple of commands and codings that you need to learn about to actually execute a PHP language and also a PHP structure, because that is totally different from HTML and CSS. Then we will learn about how to use PHP to make a website. Well, to develop a website, you are obviously going to need PHP. Then how to make PHP appear on the website? Well, that is the last thing. If you can't preview it, then obviously you won't be able to see your work and also your end result. So by the end of this course, we will be able to make a website by using PHP, then use PHP language without facing any issues, because obviously there are a couple of issues that most of the people face by using PHP. But I'm going to make all of the things clear so that you can use PHP without facing any issues. Then know how to command work, okay? So there are also a couple of commands which you need to learn before working with PHP language. So we will get through all of them in this lesson or in this course. How to apply it on web browser using HTML and localhost, just like I told you previously. Obviously you're going to need your browser to appear up your content and also your localhost, which is also the server, so that you can apply it on your web browser, and how to operate and edit the website. Well, as it is all about web development, so you are going to learn about how you'll be able to operate it and also edit the website without facing issues. So without any further ado, I hope to see you in my course. Welcome to the first lesson of WAMP server and how you'll be able to start using PHP on your device or on your PC. First off, when you install WAMP server or whichever software you're using, there are XAMPP, then there is MOMP, and all of those, and LAMP too. But here, as I'm using WAMP server, first I'm going to do is double click on it, and you will see CMD will run for a couple of times, and then right over here you can see that it is still orange, but when it turns green, that means the server has turned on. You can stop all the service, start all the service, and restart all of your services too. Now the next thing what we're gonna do is go over to our directory in www and then make our folder there and open it up as a project. So what I'm gonna do is go up to my PC or this PC, then find out local disk C. Now from here I'm gonna do is select on this WAMP64, and then you will find a folder named www. Click on it. And then what you're going to do is make up all of your, let's say, all of the folders or all of the websites which you are trying to edit through PHP over here, so that you can find out your project very easily. Next thing I'm going to show you is that, first off, let's just make a folder. Click on new, click on a folder. Let's say this is going to be our index.php, but we already have it. So I'm going to do is type in index. Okay. Let's say this is going to be our index. I'm going to open it up and make up our notepad file over here. So from here, I'm going to do is click on new text document. And from here, I'm going to do is type in index. and on the extension I'm going to do is type in PHP. And if you're still can't find it, or like you don't know how to change this extension, just go over here, search for, let's say, File Explorer option and all of those. File Explorer option, go over to view, unselect this hide extension for known file type. You will see that it will be like removed. When I click on it, you can see I'm going to press apply. You can see the extension is not visible, but when I deselect it, press on apply, it is visible. So I'm going to press on OK, and the next thing I'm going to do is open up my browser. First I'm going to do is go over to my browser, click on open with, and I'm going to do is click on more apps. Let's say I'm going to open it up with Internet Explorer or whichever browser I'm using. So I'm going to do is open it up with Opera GX. Let's say I'm going to open it up. You can see that my index.php has opened up over here. But there are a couple of different things you have to keep in mind about PHP when you are opening up on the website. First thing, you need your server. The next thing is that you need to put in the codes or put in that language through HTML codes. Thus, you have to put in PHP inside the body of HTML. Okay? So there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind. But first off, here I'm going to search for localhost to see if it's actually working. Click on enter. Now I can see that it has given me up a page where I can see all of my project, my PHP versions, loaded extensions, tools, projects, aliases, virtual hosts. So let's start off with the first one. As you can see, this is version 3.2.0 and it's a 64-bit. Make sure to download whichever version or whichever bit your PC or laptop is, and then download it according to your desire. Then you will find your Apache version, which is 2.4.41, and documentation. Then we have a server software like version, PHP version, the loaded extension, which are these. We're going to go through them one by one and how those actually work. And those are kind of like the extension which is going to increase your functionality in using WAMP server. Then we have its MariaDB, then MySQL version. Then we have the tools. Well, we will go through them step by step later on in our course. Then we have is our project, which was index. You can see from over here that we have is www, and we have our index. But one thing you can do is, if you don't see these options, go over to your task manager or your taskbar, which is going to be up over here. Click on this, right click on it, or like click on it, and then you will see a couple of options like tools and all of those, WAMP settings. Okay, so from there what you're gonna do is take a risk. Okay, you will find that in like over there. So I'm gonna do is click on it, minimize it. Now you will see that a session tray. Okay, so what you're gonna do is cut it if you are using the newest version of WAMP. So I'm gonna do is open it up. Now you will see an option like this will appear up. So from here you will find MySQL, PHP, and all of those all together. But from here I'm gonna go over to my settings or my directory. Okay, and then you will find an option called, let's say, settings or tools. From there you will find an option called take risk. From that take risk, what you're gonna do is upload your, like, let's say I'm gonna go over here and find it out and show it to you, like verify, which is do not. But what you're gonna do is verify it. If you see that do not verify host file, if it's clicked, then unclick it and those files will appear up on your website. So I'm gonna go over to my website again. You can see it has appeared over here. Now you also have adminer, PHP myadmin, PHP sysinfo, and localhost. Now the next thing what we're gonna do or show you is going to be opening this up, this index. Okay, so if you are trying to open up your index, just type in .index or .php over here. But that is a bit different because we did not put any command or any language in our text folder. So I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna go over to this file which I open it up. You can see from over here. Next thing I'm gonna do is open it up with a text editor. So to open it up with a text editor, obviously you're gonna need a software. There are a couple of software. Okay, there is Atom Writer, and there is like, which I'm using is Visual Studio Code. You can also use Notepad++ and all of those. That's like totally the same. So from here, I'm going to do is open it up with my Visual Studio Code. You can see that I have pressed on open. It will open up in a couple of time, and then I'm going to start off with my HTML codes, and later on I'm going to be showing you the basics of PHP codes and how those actually work inside of HTML and also our website, which is like quite simple to use. As you can see that this is opened up, so I'm going to do is open up my folder first, open folder, find it out, press on select folder. Well, Visual Studio Code is going to scan up your PC and then find out the folder where your like file or document is. Now I'm going to do is open up my HTML tags. I'm going to do is type in this exclamation mark, press on tab, and you can see this has appeared up. So the next thing what we're going to do is using up my PHP codes or PHP language, and you're going to put that inside your body, and that is quite simple to do. First off, I'm going to do is hit on enter, make some spaces, and then I'm going to start off with the PHP, which is going to be this open tag. Make sure to hit in a question and then PHP. Make sure to like keep it to php2.php. Now, as I've typed in PHP over here, what you're going to do is make up your content over here or put in your content over here. And you should keep your local host on most of the time when you are using PHP. Make sure to see this if it's green. If it's not green, then it's not going to work. So I'm going to do is type in PHP, and then I'm going to do is type in my content, which is going to be echo. So I'm going to do is hit on enter. And here I'm going to do is type in echo, which is another command of PHP. Hit on enter. Now I'm going to do is open up my bracket. And then here in the bracket, I'm going to do is type in hello. There. Okay. Now as I've typed in that, close it off, which is this. And I'm going to do is close the PHP with a question and a close tag, which you can see over here. A question and a close tag. Now I am done with my PHP, which is just the basic, and that is quite simple to do. So the next thing what we're going to do is going to be going over to my website and see if it actually works, and make sure to like keep one thing in mind, make sure that your server is always on. So I'm going to go over to my website, which is going to be over here. The next thing I'm going to do is localhost. Find out your localhost, which number it is. Okay, localhost. So from our website, I'm going to do is type in /www/index, the name you put in your folder or your PHP file .php. Well, if I do that, you will see that an index error will appear up or it will not be found. So the next thing what we're going to do is open up our CMD and type in a command, which will help us to find our code of our localhost. To do that, I'm going to do is go over to my Windows and search for CMD from here. CMD. You can see it like over here. I'm going to just right click on it, run as administrator. And here the next thing I'm going to do is going to be opening up a command. Okay. To use that command, what we're going to do is type in. So here I'm going to do is type in my command, which is going to be PHP. Then make a space, this hyphen, and then type in S, capital S. The next thing I'm going to do is make some spaces again, then local host, and then this, and then type in 4000 and see if it works. Hit on enter, and you can see this is not recognized as an internal or external command, operable program, or batch file. So what you're going to do next is find out another one where you can type in your code, which is going to be users. Okay, so to find users, you can see C users, my PC, PHP, and then this code. Okay, so let's try putting in our 4000 over here. Let's see if it still works. If it doesn't work, then we have to put in another code. So here's going to be 4000 and see if it works. If you see an error like this appears up, you can see this site can't be reached, then it means that it is not 4000. So I'm going to do is cut it off again. And then go over to localhost. So if you still see that we are facing that problem, then the next thing I'm going to do is download PHP or the version of PHP to be like individual. Okay, first I'm going to go over to my website, and from here I'm going to do is download PHP. Okay, hit on enter, and then you will see the PHP option will appear up, or the PHP website. From there, I'm gonna do is find out the PHP old stable or the new stable. Make sure to download the newest version of it because it's going to contain more of the newer versions. So from here, you can go through each and every one and find out which one you want to use. Okay, from here you can download PHP 7.1, 7.2, 8.1, 8.2. But I'm gonna suggest you to use around like 7.2 and all of those, 7.1. Even though if it's old, it's going to contain all of the like tools which you actually need. And if you want to go for the newer ones, well, I'm gonna suggest you to go for the newest one because it's going to contain a lot of bug fixes. So you can choose within which one you want. Okay. So I'm going to be showing you that, lesson or that methods in the next lesson. So thank you for watching this video up till the end. Welcome back to our lesson of PHP, and in this lesson I'm going to be showing you which one you want to download PHP for your device. Even though you have your server open, but obviously you're going to need PHP to be individual so that you can get the full functionality and the full ability of PHP and also the server to work with. Okay, so as this is a basic course of PHP and about like knowing how it works, so first off you're gonna do is search for download PHP or php.net, and then go over, let's say I'm gonna go over to home and show you this page again. So I'm gonna go over to PHP home or go back. When you download or like open up this server, which is going to be download.php, click on this Windows if you're using Windows. Okay, if you're using like another OS, then go for another OS such as Mac and all of those. Click on Windows download and you will see an interface like this will appear up, and then you will find that there are a couple of these options to download from. From here, what you're gonna do is try downloading the newest version of it, but if you want to use the older version, then find the most stable ones which are suggested on their website to be the safest or like old but stable ones. Okay, from here you can see that I have 8.2, but there is something that is written like non-thread safe, which does not make your thread work or the thread process to be safe. So from here I'm gonna do is make sure to download this one, which is thread safe, and also which is 64-bit. You can see x64 over here. So I'm gonna download it up with my zip. And then, after it downloads, what you're going to do is extract it to your C with PHP. So as I already have it downloaded on my desktop, you can see it over here, which is PHP. And what I'm going to do is extract it. So I'm going to do is extract files. And after I extract files, I'm going to do is cut this off. You can see. And then here I'm going to do is type in PHP if possible, because I don't want it to be like pasted in wherever it wants to be saved. So I'm going to do is type in PHP. Now as it is saved, now I'm going to do is extract all of it. So I'm going to do is press on OK. Now you can see it has been extracted. And then what we're going to do is open up my C. So I'm going to do is go over to my PC, open up C. And I can see that this has opened up and also has my folder of PHP over here. Now as I've opened it up, the next thing I'm going to do is go over that there are like a couple of files which you want to use. And you can see there's also php.ext and then all dev extra lib php. So if you already see it, then it is like almost done about how you want to use PHP, and also about our website or our web browser, how you're going to work with it. But one thing is that you have to tell Windows where you can find PHP. So then what you're going to do is run the PHP and its functionality over here. So to do that, I'm going to do is go over here and type in environment. You can see edit the system environment, and you're going to see this option of environment variables. And then you want to type in the folder which you want to use it as PHP, or you want like Windows or your PC to recognize where you have your PHP. So I'm going to do is open up a new or edit. So I'm going to do is click on path. And when you select on path, I'm going to do is edit. And from here, as this is a system variable, so I'm going to do is type in over here. From here, I'm going to do is type in C and then colon and then slash. So I'm going to do is type in the slash where I could find it. So the next thing I'm going to do is click on it. and then type in PHP. And as we're done, I'm gonna do is going to be pressing on OK. So now you can see that it has been extracted and also selected. So I'm gonna do is press on OK, and I'm gonna do is press on OK. Press on OK, and then we're done. Then the next thing we're gonna do is type in on search bar, and I'm gonna do is open up my CMD again. And from here, I'm gonna do is open it up. Okay, I'm gonna open it up like the PHP and see if it is actually working. So I'm gonna do is type in my command. It's going to be echo, and then %, and then I'm gonna do is going to be path. I'm gonna do is % again. Hit on enter. You can see the file name, directory name, or the volume or the syntax is not like okay or like done. So keep in mind to like put in that space, which you can see from over here that first time I didn't put in any space, thus it did not work. So echo space %path %, and then you will see that C and PHP has also been entered. Okay, so keep in mind what you're gonna do is like go over to environment, select this folder, and then make sure that Windows and also your PC recognizes this file as an admin and also as the code which you are trying to use. Okay, then the next thing we're gonna like see, and as we can see that this folder is available, then that means like it has been updated, and also the path variable. The next thing I'm gonna do is make sure PHP is working. So here I'm gonna do is type in PHP space hyphen and v. That's it. Hit on enter, and you can see that PHP and all of those versions and all of those, that means it is working and also like showing it. So the next thing we're gonna do is going to be opening up our content and also finding out our local host. Now as we're done, what we're gonna do is open up CMD again. Let's type in CMD, open it up as an administrator. Here I'm gonna do is type in the command which I showed you in the first lesson, which is going to be PHP space and then this hyphen capital S, then type in local host and then colon 4000. Hit on enter. Now you can see that your server has started. The next thing I'm gonna do is copy this local host 4000, okay, which you can see from over here. Now after I copy that local host 4000, and if you are trying on this local host, which is going to be, you can see that PHP's the version, and also you can see if it's like working. So I'm gonna do is copy this, so as it is like working. So I'm gonna do is do not exit, okay, minimize it, and then I'm gonna do is go over to my file which I'm working on. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go over to this PC, go over to local C, and here I'm gonna do is find out users. And you can see that when I opened up CMD and put in my command of my local server or the local host, it is giving me the root, which is going to be users, then my PC. Then from here I'm gonna do is go over to my PC, and then here I'm gonna make up a folder. Let's say from here I'm gonna do is make up a folder called www, which is going to be our website. And as I have my website right now, because this is going to be where my PHP is going to scan it up, now I'm gonna do is copy up the PHP file and paste it over here, or you can make it over here too. So I'm gonna do is open it up a text editor. So I'm gonna do is open up my, let's say I'm gonna go over to my website again. I'm gonna do is go over to local H or local C where I have it, and I'm gonna do is type in or find out my folder where I have it. I'm gonna go over to WAMP first, and I'm gonna go over to www index. I'm gonna do is control C. Let's say I'm gonna do is control C. I'm gonna go over to C again. I'm gonna go over to users, my PC, go www and paste it over here. And I'm gonna do is paste up your file. So if you want to make up your file, then you have to obviously keep it like .php. Now let's see if it still works. So I'm gonna open up your server if it's still working. Make sure this is like this. I'm gonna go over to my website. You can see, find out your file. Here I'm going to do is type in www, which is your folder. Now you can see when I typed in www, PHP scanned your PC and your user, and then you can see that it has opened up right over here, because that is how it actually works. Okay, so now you know how we opened up our first PHP file. Make sure to follow those steps, and you might feel like it's a bit of complex because you already have your server running, then you also have your CMD running. So you can use both methods. If you want to use WAMP, all of those software, WAMP, XAMPP, LAMP, and all of those, you can like keep it on. Make sure to get your server, make sure to get your, let's say, the number of your local host, and then put in the directory, which is going to be first off www, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to go over to my folder again first. So I'm going to go over to my folder. You can see I have www over here, which is going to be users PC, my PC, where you have it. And how are you going to find it? Type in the code, which is going to be php as localhost. It's going to give you the server, or it's already showing you that C users my PC. Thus, make sure to like go over to users my PC, wherever you have it, wherever you have your directory. From here, open up a folder, let's say www. Then if you are pressing www, then type in www over here. If you are naming something else, then name it something else, the folder name, and then type in the name of your directory or the file which you're using, which is going to be index.php. So thank you for watching this video of how you'll be able to open up your first PHP folder or first PHP file. In the previous lesson, we've showed you how you'll be able to open up your PHP file or your PHP folder in your web browser. And I've also showed you the basic code or the basic command of how you'll be able to open up and also set your PC and set your files so in such a way so that you can see them. Okay. So first off, we're going to learn about HTML coding, a bit of HTML coding and a bit of PHP coding over in this lesson and how those actually work. In the previous lesson, I've showed you about the command of echo. You can see from over here. So this echo command is basically a command which will allow you to have your content over on this website or your web browser. You can see that I still have my localhost running. Make sure to keep your localhost running. If it's not working, then what you're going to do is open up CMD again. Let's say I'm going to type in CMD. I'm going to go over here, run as an administrator. Here you're going to do is type in PHP, do the same thing, space, then type in like hyphen, capital S, localhost, colon, and 4000. Hit on enter. And this is running as this is started. Minimize it and keep it running in the background. Now you can see from over here as I have echo, now I opened up my bracket and this is the requirement of how this command works. You can see bracket and then we have is double quotation. There is going to contain the content in between them. Then we closed off the bracket and then end it with a semicolon. And before that we have is open PHP and closing PHP. So when you put up those codes and then put it up over here, only then and only then you will see the content will appear over here. Let's say I'm going to do is cut it off. I'm going to cut it off and let's see how it works. If it still works, then it means it's a bit different. So I'm going to open it up again, Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to type in my content. First I'm going to do is save it. I'm going to do is go over here. I'm going to do is go or run it. Start debugging, find PHP extension. Then I'm going to do is like search for my PHP extension if there is. If you see that PHP debug and all of those are available, make sure to install those. I'm going to do is installing. I'm going to make sure to install this one too, and you can see both of them are installing. And after they're done, I'm going to do is show to you how you'll be able to debug them step by step, one by one. And if you also want to like use them as like a live server and all of those, you can also do that too. But I'm going to suggest you to not do that because when you are using PHP as a live server, it's going to become like a really big hassle. Okay, so make sure to do that and make sure to like use like save it up and then go back, open up your server again, and that is how I suggest you to work on it. As you can see, PHP 1.3.4 has opened up and also extensions. Now I'm going to do is run it up. I'm going to do is run, start debugging. And you can see listen for xdebug and all of those. You can use whichever one you want. You can launch it. You can see run and debug. Well, all of them are over here. You can see it is launching. and you can see that this has appeared over here. This is a lot like a live server which I showed you in HTML and CSS, but you can see that HTML, like this mainly turned into an HTML file but not PHP. Minimize it, and from here I'm going to do is type in this PHP. First I'm going to do is type in question mark, then I'm going to type in PHP. I'm going to close it off, this again, close it off. I'm going to do is question and then close it off. Now this is PHP, so I'm going to run it again. Let's say I'm going to run, start debugging, PHP run, yes, open launch, and you can see that this has appeared, and you can see the echo is not visible. And now we have our server, which is 4000 and www, and also our index.php running. So that is how PHP mainly works. I'm going to open up my web browser again and open up my Visual Studio Code 2 and then change my content and see how it actually works. As you can see that this has debugged my content and also my commands. So the next thing I'm going to do is open up my PHP and run my variable. So I'm going to go over here, which is going to be index.php, and here I'm going to do is type in, let's say I'm going to type in hey there. I'm going to do is reload it, and you can see it is still not working. So I'm going to do is go over to my Visual Code again, and I'm going to do is debug this. Okay, so you can see I'm going to do is go over to run, and I'm going to do start debugging, open launch JSON, and you can see this is appearing over here. And I'm going to do is add configuration if you want to, and if you still like are not seeing it, I'm going to do is reload it, and now you can see that it has turned into hey there. So this is how you'll be able to use HTML and also like use PHP at the same time. And make sure to like use the PHP and also debug it in such a way so that you will be able to see it. Like obviously it's going to take a bit of a time because this is not HTML and CSS, so that whenever you press on run and debug, it's going to appear up, and whenever you reload, it's not going to appear up right then, because PHP works in like separate ways. Just like I told you from the intro, it goes through 4 phases and then shows you on your website. So you have to like keep your server open, then it's going to go through your coding, then it's going to go through your MySQL, and then PHP, and then last is going to go over to the cloud and then show it to you over through your document and also on your PC on your screen. First I'm going to do is type in, let's say I'm going to go over to Visual Studio Code again, and from here I'm going to do is go over to index. Here I'm going to type in another content, which is going to be like this, and here I'm going to type in a tag, which is not going to be this one. Okay, so I'm going to close it off. Here I'm going to do is, let's say I'm going to use another code, which is going to be h1 from HTML and CSS. I'm going to make some spaces over here, and then in between the double quotation, I'm going to do is the code. Let's say type in h1, which is going to be a heading tag. I'm going to close it off. You can see h1 over there. I'm going to do is close it off to this bracket. Then I'm going to close it off /h1. Close that thing off. You can see this is now done. The next thing I'm going to do is going to be refresh it, see if it works, and you can see that if it's still not working, the next thing I'm going to do is going to be debug this too. So I'm going to do is minimize it, go over to Visual Studio Code. Now I'm going to do is, let's say I'm going to open up JSON again, like first off run it, run without debugging, and let's see if it works. Now you can see that hey there has been put, and also like put up my heading 1 has been applied on my PHP folder. Now let's use my paragraph command. Okay, I'm going to go over to Visual, and I'm going to do is enter, and make sure to keep in mind that here the semicolon is how a line ends or how a command ends. So here I'm going to type in echo again, echo, hit on enter, and I'm going to do is put in double quotation. Now here I'm going to put in my paragraph tag. So now you can see my paragraph tag has been put. I'm going to open up my closing tag to paragraph, close it off. Now I'm going to put in my content in between my paragraph. So this is going to be, this is my site. This is going to be my site. You can see this is going to be my site. I'm going to close it off too, which you can see from over here. Close it off. And I'm going to put in my horizontal row too. If you want to do it, I can put in my horizontal row in between them. So let's say I'm gonna like put in my horizontal row. So I'm gonna type in echo again. Here I'm gonna open up my tag, which is going to be double quotation first, and then I'm gonna type in HR, which is horizontal row. What I'm gonna do is going to be opening up my tag HR, close, and it has been done. So I'm gonna do is run it again. I'm gonna go over run. What I'm gonna do is run without debugging. Yes, and restart it. I can see syntax error has appeared up. If it appears up, I'm gonna do is open up my Visual Studio Code again, which you can see from over here, and make sure to like see wherever I have some mistakes going on. And if it's not working, you can see H1, hey there, and all of those. Let's see where the mistake is. And you can see this is still working, which is going to be over here. There should be like an end over here. Okay, now let's run it over. Run without debugging. Yes, reload it. And I can see that this has been put. Well, make sure to like use all the commands like very carefully, because if you're making some mistakes and if you're skipping a part or even some signs or symbols, it's still not going to work. Just like you saw on this part, like I didn't put on my semicolon over there and it showed me as an error. So make sure to do that and make sure to be more careful. And whenever you're opening up, you can open it up without debugging if you feel like debugging is going to take a bit of a time. But there is like a lot of, you know, advantage of debugging, because you can use it for later purpose too. You can see in logs.json there is a lot of debugging over here. You can see how the HTMLs and all of those work. But if you don't want to use debugging, just open it up without running the debugging and then opening up on your web browser, and that is how you'll be able to see your PHP file appearing up on your web browser. So thank you for watching this video on how you'll be able to open up your PHP file by using HTML and all of those. And another thing is that when I open up CMD, you can see that it is like all of those over here. Like that is how this actually works, and that is how you can see that your server is working and also your localhost 4000 is working. You can see that this is accepted and then closing. So when it closes is that when I close it off, restart it, or like open up another one, that is when it closes, and you can see that it is accepted. So now you can see that you need like an internet connection, and obviously you're gonna need like a faster service and also your server on most of the time, so that you can work with PHP and show it up on your web browser. So thank you for watching this video about how you will know about how you'll be able to use HTML in PHP and also use the codes and commands of HTML and CSS over on PHP. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome to our lesson of PHP. In this lesson, we are going to learn about the variables. So first off, variables are a kind of thing or a command or a process what happens in PHP, because in PHP you will find certain like information, data, like a lot of them, and you might want to keep up with it and you don't know how to do that. Okay, so here in this lesson I'm going to be showing you how you'll be like how you will know about the variables, the usage of it, and also how you will get with the pace of variables. So first off, I'm gonna do is change of my contents over here. After I'm gonna change my content, I'm gonna do is obviously put in or use the variables. Okay, so first off, let's try using the BR tag. So I'm gonna do is close it off. Let's say I'm gonna cut it, and here I'm gonna type in this is the first line, and here I'm gonna do is close off my BR tag, which is line break. Okay, so I'm gonna put in a space. I'm going to open up my tag, close it off, BR. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. You can keep this HR if you want to, but here I'm not going to use any of those HR and paragraph. Instead, I'm just going to use the BR tag. So I'm going to do is type in this is the second line. I'm going to close it off too. I'm going to put on my BR code again, close it off with my BR, and in my paragraph tag, I'm going to do is close it off again. So let's say I'm going to type in I didn't like this line. Now I'm going to do the last thing. I'm going to put in my BR, close it off, and see when I run it without debugging. So I'm going to run it off. Yes, I'm gonna do is refresh it. And you can see this has appeared over here, and also I have line spaces and line breaks just like I did on HTML. So I'm going to start using my variables right now. Before that, let me just change a bit over here. Let's say over here, I'm gonna type in there was a guy named GG. Okay, GG. And then here I'm gonna type in he liked to eat apples. Okay, now we have variables. Then let's say I'm gonna type in he lived in America. I'm gonna copy this, okay? Control C, make another line. And here I'm gonna type in is he was 25 years old. And his full name was GG Lamar. Okay, now as we're done, I'm gonna do is refresh it. If it's not working, then I have to debug it. So I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna click on run without debugging. Yes, refresh it. Now you can see that we have our text over here. But now I'm going to be showing you about our, let's say, variables. So as you can see that there is a guy named GG. This is going to be the name of the guy. Then what he liked to eat was apples. He lived in America. He was 25 years old and his full name was GG Lamar. So what I'm going to do here is going to be using them as variables. First off, I'm going to do is type in echo. So here I'm going to type in, let's say, put in a $sign. And here in the $sign, I'm going to type in the name. Okay, so let's say character name. Okay, so character name is GG. So I'm going to type in GG over here. So character name is equal to GG. I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to do is make some spaces. Here I'm going to type in double quotation. Let's say this is going to be GG. You can see GG has been put. I'm going to close it off with a semicolon. Hit on enter. Now let's say I'm going to put in character. Let's say character food. Let's just type in character food, even though if it's not, double quotation. I'm going to put in all of those, how those actually work. I'm going to put in that. I'm going to put in double quotation. Let's say apples. Close it off with a semicolon too. I'm going to put on another one. Let's say here it's going to be character country. This double quotation. This is going to be America. Let's just type in USA, which is a lot easier, even though if it's not like that. So I'm going to do is semicolon. And here I'm going to do is type in the last one, which is going to be $, and then character age. Okay, I'll say character age, which is over here, space equal double quotation is going to be 25. Now as we have our variables, now we can use those over here. But first off, we're going to refresh it. And I'm going to go over to Visual Studio Code again. And here I'm going to type in those. So here I'm going to type in character name. Now as I have my character name, I'm going to type in $, over here and see if it works. Character food. And first I'm going to do is launch it up, run without debugging, press on yes, reset, refresh, and yet you can see that this is being visible. Now you know how it is working. So I'm going to do is remove this first. Here I'm going to type in, first off, let's just type in this character. Okay, let's just type in $character. But I'm going to open up my web browser. And I'm going to go over to the Visual Code, run without debugging, press on yes, press on refresh, and yet you can see that this is giving me warning. So that means that the variables are working. Let's just finish out that. So I'm going to do is character, country, which you can see character, country. Now I'm going to do is going to be run it up, run without debugging, press on yes. Now you can see he lived in USA. That means now you know that the variables are working. I'm going to do the same thing over here on 25 years old. Now here I'm going to do is type in $, character age. You can see from over here, character age is over here. And I'm going to do the same thing over on GG, which is going to be character name. And I'm going to keep the Lamar, okay, because that is a different thing. So I'm going to do is character. Now, as we're done, I'm going to do is going to be run it without the debugging again. Press on yes. I'm going to do is like refresh it. Now you can see that this has worked. But if I remove a couple of things from over here, let's say I'm going to like remove A from over here and use a small case. And now I'm over here, I'm also going to use a small case. Now I'm going to do is, okay, I'm typing in. Here I'm going to do is run it without debugging. Yes, refresh it. I can see that this is giving me 2 warnings because that isn't how it is supposed to work. Okay, so here what you have to keep in mind that it is case sensitive. So you have to use whichever one you're using as a reference from over here and the one you assigned it to be a variable. So use it, let's say, but here if I change it over here, let's say I'm going to type in N and over here I'm going to type in A. Here I'm going to change it and okay, and I'm going to do is run it with debugging or without debugging, press on yes, refresh it. Now you can see that this is still working. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that the characters or the cases how you are assigning it to be a variable, because if you are not cautious about that and if it's not the same, then obviously it will not work. So hope you understood about how you will be able to use variable. Let's show you another variable over here. Now you can also use symbols and all of those together too. So I'm going to take it up over here. Let's say GG, and then I'm going to type in, let's say over here, double quotation, GG. Here I'm going to put in a question mark like this. Now let's say I'm going to put in a question mark in between them two. I'm going to do is run it without debugging, press on yes. I'm going to open it up on my web browser, refresh it. I can see I also have my symbols over here. See, there was a guy named GG. It's like a question. Okay, so whatever you put, whatever you put or assign it as a variable, everything is going to be visible inside of the text so that it is visible on your screen. And that is how you'll be able to use variables on PHP and use it for like various purposes too. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome back to our lesson of PHP. In this lesson, we are going to learn about data types. So when you are working with PHP, there is going to be a lot of information, a lot of data. And obviously there is different types of data whenever you're using. Just like this one, like we used variables. In the previous one, we used HTML. Then we also used the codes of, normal PHP and how it works on the HTML body and all these, okay? So all of these are different type of data. So here, I'm also going to be showing you how you'll be able to use different type of data types in PHP. And as this is the basic course of PHP, I'm going to keep it to be supple and very normal and very flexible as possible. So first I'm going to do is cut all of these up because I'm not going to need any of these anymore. So I'm going to cut these. Okay. I'm going to delete them. So the first thing we're going to learn about is going to be the string. Okay, so just like we use in HTML that there are a couple of tags and then we end it at the end by making it into a structure. So in PHP, it's kind of like the same thing and it's called a string. and you can use different type of data and different type of command to make up that structure in PHP and also our web browser. So that is called a string. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna do is open up my PHP command first. If you don't have it, then open it up like typing in this open PHP and closing PHP, and type in your content in between them. First off, I'm gonna do is start using our variable, which is going to be phrase. So let's start off by using phrase. Okay, I'm gonna type in this. I'm gonna type in phrase. You can see we have our phrase, okay, over here, and here obviously you're gonna make a space, and then obviously just like you used in PHP, that it needs a double quotation and also at the end a semicolon to end it. So here I'm gonna type in, this is the lesson of data types. Okay, now at the end I'm gonna do is close it with a semicolon, and obviously it will be appearing on my web browser. Obviously when I refresh it, it's still not going to work until I debug it or run it. So here I'm going to do is type in another one. Let's say I'm going to do is the age, okay, which I put over here, and I'm going to do is space, double quotation, and here you can use, like in age, when you're using a number, it's totally fine if you even are like not using double quotation, because numbers are variables and also changeable, so that it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna here type in, let's say 40. I'm gonna put in a colon, okay, semicolon. But if you want to use a negative number, you can also use that too. If you don't use a negative, then obviously it's going to be positive. Okay, so here I'm gonna do is put in positive, because if you are using negative numbers, obviously it's going to turn into decimals. Make sure to keep that space in between the commands, because if you are not putting that, you will face some couple of errors. And make sure to keep your server on most of the times. If you are still like not working on it, then obviously open up your CMD, type in the command of, you know, PHP as localhost 4000, and keep it working like in your like background. Here I'm gonna do is type in, let's say I'm gonna make let's say a chart type of thingy. So I'm gonna do is open up this, and I'm gonna type in GPA this time. So here equal, and here I'm gonna do is going to be 554 point, or like 5.65, or like 53, whichever one you're using. If you don't want to use like double quotation, that's like totally up to you. But if you don't want, like you want to use it, you can also keep it. And make sure to see both of it if it still works. If it's like not working, then put in your double quotation. So next time I'm gonna do is going to be putting up another variable. So I'm gonna do is male. So I'm gonna do is type in if it's male or female, you can use it. And obviously PHP works, or the variable works in such a case that if it's true or if it's false. So it's going to be 0 or 1, just like we use or see in ICT or about the codes, how it works. So I'm gonna do is type in false. You can see false, that means it's 0. So I'm gonna close off like with double, like, you know, semicolon, and here at the end I'm gonna do is type in null. Now we have is null. That means it's kind of like at the end, but you can use it for various purposes too. And if you are using those variables on a paragraph now, then you are going to type in echo. So if you are not like using null at the end, so I'm going to do is type in echo, and you can use in your variables. Let's say I'm going to use the first one, which is going to be phrase, which is going to be, this is the lesson of data type. You can see phrase has been like appeared over here. Hit on enter. And I'm going to use my other data types. Okay, so I'm going to do is close it off, echo, and then I'm going to type in echo again, and here I'm going to do is type in my, you know, like variables. Let's say I'm going to type in age. You can see age has appeared up. Close it with a semicolon. I'm going to type in echo again, and if it's still not working, what you're going to do is like type in your content, or type in a BR tag, which is going to be of HTML. But if you're using HTML, then make sure to use double quotation, because if you're not using it, it's not going to work. So here I typed in GPA. I'm going to type in GPA over here, close it with a semicolon, and type in echo again. Let's say type in echo. I'm going to do is using my variable again. Now let's say is male. Okay, now we have is male. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to do is run it. start with run without debugging, press on yes, refresh it. Now you can see the syntax error has appeared up because there are a couple of things which we did as a mistake. So here I'm going to do is first off close it, and yet let's see how it works. If it's still not working, then you have to put in double quotation on each and every one of those. And yet you can see that these are the data types which are being used over here. And what you're going to do is obviously use them step by step. So here you can put in double quotation like this, double quotation. Then after you're done with double quotation, then you can like start typing in those contents, or like start typing in whatever content you want to use. And if it's still not working, then make sure to like see the and follow all of the steps which I'm doing, and only then you'll be able to get that. And I'm gonna do is close off the PHP. So here I'm gonna do is question and close it off. I'm gonna do is run it without debugging, and let's see if it still works. If it's not working, then you can see this is lesson of this is the lesson of data types 405.53. and then if it's false or true. So if it's false, then it's 0, that means there's no data, and if it's true, then it's going to put in some data if possible. Okay, so now you know about the basics of data types, which are going to be such as phrase, then we have is age, GPA, male, and all of those all together. So these are the data types. Now we are going to start working with strings. So if you want to start working with strings, or like start working with let's say a string or like a structure, then let's say I'm gonna do over here is first off I'm gonna keep it. Okay, I'm gonna keep it, but here I'm gonna type in my echo. So here I'm gonna type in echo, and here I'm gonna open up my double quotation. This I'm gonna say is this. Okay, I'm gonna type in like welcome, and after I type in welcome, I'm gonna put in this, and here I'm gonna do is put the string of, let's say, phrase. So here I'm gonna do is double quotation, or like, you know, I'm gonna do is type in phrase. Well, there are a couple of functions which you can use in these two. I'm gonna close it off, but first I'm gonna do is close off with a BR tag. Now here I'm gonna do is put another one. You can see the phrase, or like, you know, the structure is being used. And if I want to use like something else like a function, so I'm gonna do is type in echo. Here I'm gonna do the same thing, open up the double tag or the double quotation, but before that I'm gonna do is type in string, okay, which is going to be str. You can see str is over here, and if you want to type in str, you can also type in str tuple. So start tuple strt, which is going to be like this, strt outper, and then you're going to type in your content. But if you are using that, I'm going to suggest you to use the bracket, because that is how it works. strt, then here I'm going to put in my bracket, and as I've put in my bracket, now you can see the string. The input string is over here. I'm going to open up this, and here I'm going to type in dog, or like cat, whichever one you're using. And after that, close it off with a semicolon. Or you can also use like a phrase, or like use, let's say I'm going to put in my age. Okay, so here I'm going to close a double quotation. But first off, I'm going to do is close this off. Here I'm going to type in this, you know, obviously a variable. Well, let's say here I'm going to use age. Okay, as I've used age, now I can use also str over here. You can use tuple, but also use just str. That will also work. You can also type in strlen. That will also remain as a string. Strlen, it is also still a string. Okay, so that is how the strings actually work. Now here you can also use another one. Let's say I'm going to type in, but first off, let's just run it and see if it actually works. Run without debugging. I'm going to open up my web browser, refresh it. Now you can see welcome. This is a lesson of data types, and we have is 2. Okay, so I'm going to open up my Visual Browser or my Visual Studio Code. Here I'm going to use another step of this. Okay, so I'm going to cut it off, and instead of strlen, I'm going to use the first things first over here. Is going to be using my extension or using my variable. So I'm going to type in echo, And right after echo, I'm going to type in my variable. Let's say I'm going to type in, let's say, phrase. Now, as I've typed in phrase, now I'm going to do is open up my bracket, but not the first or the third bracket. Here, you have to use the second bracket, which is going to be this one, okay? So let's say here, I have my phrase and I'm going to type in 0. So after I typed in 0, I'm going to close it off my semicolon. So I'm going to do is going to be opening up on my web browser and see if it works. Let's say I'm going to open it up, run without debugging. Yes, refresh it. Now you can see that I have T, okay? So this is how it mainly actually works. You can use these numbers to change up your alphabet and all of those. So I'm going to run it without debugging again. Without debugging, press on yes, refresh it. Now you can see this is now changing. So that is how it basically works in your web browser, and also how it works on your codes and commands. Here, let's say I'm going to type in another code over here. Here I'm going to do is type in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, or like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, as this is a string, so I'm going to run it without debugging, press on yes, I'm going to refresh it. I can see that I have a syntax error. So as I have a syntax error, now I'm going to use the same thing over here on Visual Studio Code, but inside of this bracket. So I'm going to do is type in 3 and see if it works. Run without debugging. And before that, I'm going to do is close off this. And I'm going to refresh it. And if it's still not showing, then I'm going to do is go over to Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to do is run without debugging again. Yes. And refresh it. Now you can see that this is S. Okay. Now let's say I'm going to like dedicate one. Okay. So here, as I have my first one over here, okay, which is going to be the phrase. And here, as I have typed in 0 before, now here I'm going to do the same thing down over here. So I'm going to type in echo. Now, as I've typed in echo, I'm going to do is type in this. Now, I'm going to do is type in my content, which is going to be, let's say, phrase. Now, here in phrase, I'm going to do is open up my, second bracket. Here, I'm going to type in 0 if possible, but if you don't want to use that, well, let's say I'm going to use 0. But first, I'm going to put in 0. And here I'm going to dedicate that just like I told you. So I'm going to open it up, equal, double quotation, and then I'm going to type in B. Now I'm going to do is going to be 0. And what you will see is that I'm going to close it off again. And here you will see I'm going to run it without debugging. Without debugging, press on yes. And you will see that this will change. You can see that I have 2B. And that is how it basically works, okay? And why it works is totally different. So here I'm going to do is close it off and make some changes over here, because this is not how it's supposed to be. First I'm going to do is over here on phrase, I'm going to cut it off. Let's say I'm not going to use this and use a name instead. Let's say I'm going to type in orange. Now, as I've typed in orange, I'm not going to keep it like this too. So here I'm going to cut this off. Or we can use the phrase only. So I'm going to cut this one off. Okay, not echo, just the phrase. Now here I'm going to do is phrase is equal to, let's say, orange. Now, as we have phrase equal orange, so I'm going to open it up and make some spaces over here. Make a line space if I want to, but if I don't want to, I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to close this and see if it works. Now I'm going to do is going to be using echo at the end. So I'm going to remove this one too, but I'm going to keep the phrase at down over here and use the 0 as a B. So what happens is that 0 is 0, O is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what happens over here is that I'm going to show it to you again. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the alphabets and these are the codes which I'm going to be putting in for phrases and also echo. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here, and at the last I have echo, which is going to be phrase, and 0. So here I'm going to do is open without debugging or run without debugging. Press on yes. I'm going to start on, and you can see that I have only B over here. Okay, so as I already have B, so I'm going to close it off. We can see phrase is 0. As I don't have it over here, so I'm going to cut this off. first. So as I have my phrase to be 0, so I'm going to open it up again. I'm going to do is run without debugging. Press on yes. Open up your web browser, refresh it. You will still see that this is still like B. So I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code again. Now, as I've put in that content, make sure to remove the 0 from over here so that you can get your whole, like, the whole text of orange, but you're going to get is as orange, okay? So I'm going to open it up, run without debugging again, press on, now you can see it's branch, okay? Not orange, but branch, okay? So this is how it actually works when you are working with strings, okay? So let's say here I'm going to type in 1. And it's going to turn this one now, okay, which is going to be R. So I'm going to run without debugging again. Press on yes. Now you can see orange, okay. Now the R has changed. Now let's see how the other one works. So I'm going to do is type in 2, and I want, if it's 2, so if it's O like is 0, 1, and this is 2, so let's say ORE. Let's type in E over here and run it without debugging. Now you will see that A will turn into E. Now you can see orange. So this is how the strings actually work in PHP and how you will be able to make changes by using those steps. So thank you for watching this video, and hope you understood everything about the strings and how you will be able to use or start working with strings in PHP and also coding. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome back to our lesson of PHP. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how we can use PHP with numbers. Well, as we did already show you about our previous lesson, how we worked with, strings and all of those. So in this lesson, we are going to be learning how we will work with numbers in PHP. So first I'm going to do is open up my Visual Studio Code, which you can see from over here, which is index.php. Here I'm going to do is open up the folder, and after I opened up the folder, you can see that it will show me trust this author, and we're going to click on OK, and then you are going to start from over here. So first I'm going to do is remove this and start off from the beginning. So just like we did on the previous times, like we added in numbers, but sometimes we put in double quotation and sometimes we did not. So you have to keep that in mind, that when you are using numbers in PHP or using numbers as a variable and all of those, you don't have to use double quotation. Like even if you do or not do it, it's still gonna show it up on your web browser. So let's just start off without any further ado. So let's just type in echo, and after I type in echo, you can see I'm gonna type in 40, and then whatever happens, you just have to keep in mind that you have to end it. So after I ended it, I'm gonna do is run it up without debugging. I'm gonna open up my browser. You can retry as admin, press on yes, and that has been done. I'm gonna go over to my web browser and reload it. And you can see 40 has appeared up on my web browser, okay? And you can also see that the local host which I'm using for the past couple of lessons. So make sure to see or open up your CMD and keep it running in your background, okay? First up, what you're gonna do is type in your echo path, just like we did on the previous lesson, and then make sure to run your local host so that PHP can make its own local host on CMD and then run it for you on your web browser, okay? So after that is done, let me just show you with double quotation too. Let's say I'm gonna do is put in a double quotation, end it with a double quotation too, close it off. Now run it without debugging, press on yes, and after that just retry as admin. Make sure to do that most of the time, show more, and type in yes, and that has been debugged. After it's debugged, just go over to your web browser, restore it, and you can see still the 40 is available. So it doesn't matter that if you are using using double quotation or not use quotation. Well, that's totally up to you and totally optional. And if you want to do addition to, you can also do that. Let me just remove it. Let's say first off, let's just type in negative 40. Now I'm gonna go over to my web browser. First off, run without debugging, press on yes. Now I'm gonna do is cut it off, go to my web browser and restore it. First off, I'm gonna do is again run it without debugging, press on yes, retry as admin, press on yes, and that will open up most of the time. So go over to your web browser and restore it. Now you can see that it's minus 40. Now let's say the next time what I'm going to do is going to be typing in a decimal number. So let's say I'm going to type in 40 point, let's say something like this, and the same number will appear on your web browser. And that is how exactly PHP works. So first I'm going to do is remove it. Now let's say PHP can also take addition, multiplication, subtraction, and all of those at the same time. But it's not like that it's going to do the summation or the mathematic for you. It's just going to like show you the number on your screen. But if you want that, like, you know, to do the summation for you, to do the math for you, then that is like a totally different command which you have to use, or a totally different function you have to use. So first off, let me just type in 4 plus 5. And as that has appeared up, now I'm going to do is run it without debugging. Now I'm going to press on yes, press on retry as admin, press on yes, go over to my web browser, restore it, and you can see that it's still doing the math for me. That means PHP understood what I was trying to like put. So 4 plus 5 is equals to 9. So that is how they put it. But if you put in double quotation in between them and put in spaces, you might see something different. Let's say I'm going to do is run without debugging, press on yes, save as. I'm going to do save it as index.php, yes, retry as admin, press on yes, and I'm going to go over to my web browser and let's see how it looks like. Yet you can see that it's still giving me 9 as an answer. So that is how it exactly works. Okay, so you will be able to use a lot of numbers too, and if you want to multiply it, then what you're gonna do is put in the star option and then run it as debugging, or yes or no. That's like totally up to you how you're gonna work with it. I'm gonna go over to my web browser and you can see 4 into 5 is 20. If you want to like divide it, you can also do that. So, and if you want to like make the percentage, you can do that too. So let me just show it to you step by step. So let's say first I'm gonna do is divide it. If you want to divide it, then you have to put in the like division sign, which is going to be this 4 divided by 5. That is how it exactly works like. So let's just see how it works. First I'm gonna do is type in 20 over here because that is how I want it to be. I'm gonna do is run it without debugging and do the same step. Well, you might feel like it's a bit, you know, frustrating sometimes, but this is how it actually works. Now you can see that 20 divided by 5 is equals to 4. Okay, now that is how it works like. I'm going to do is remove it again. Let's say I'm going to do is type in 20. Now type in percentage. Let's say I'm going to type in 4. Now let's see when I debug it, run it without debugging, run it as administrator. I just go over to my web browser. I can see 20 division, or like 20% is 40, is how it exactly works. Okay, then you can also do a lot of things with this mathematics. Okay, this is like totally up to you. You can also use like variables too. So as that is like totally 0 now let's do a 3 number or 3 numeral value and see how, like, if it gives us the answer. So let's say I'm going to do is open my bracket after echo. Now let's say from here I'm going to do is 5 plus 7, and after I type in 5 plus 7, which is equal to like 12. Okay, now as that is 12, what I'm going to do is multiply it like at the end. So I'm going to do is put in this and 12 into 2, and I'm going to do is run it as debug, yes, retry as admin, press on yes, and I'm going to go to my web browser and restore it. You can see that I have 24 because 5 plus 7 is 12, and 12 into 2 is like 24. And now you can see that PHP can do a lot of mathematics for you directly on your web browser. And obviously after seeing that, you know that PHP has a lot of functionality and a lot of capability to actually make up, you know, a web development and, you know, a web browser. So I'm going to do is minimize it again and start working over here. Next thing what I'm going to do is going to be using my variable. So here I'm going to do is first off cut it off. So here I'm going to do is cut it off, and the first thing what I'm going to do is type in the sign just like we used on the variables and say num. I'm going to keep it like this, and here num is equal to, let's say, 20. Okay, I'm going to do is close it off, Now here, the next thing what I'm gonna do is type in echo. I'm gonna put in my variable num, which is over here. And after I type in echo and num, I'm gonna do is close it off, semicolon. I'm gonna do is run it without debugging. Yes. Retry as administrator. Yes. I'm gonna go over to my web browser, and you can see that like the variable number is 20. And if I say that I'm gonna add it up, I'm gonna do is put in a plus, and let's say I'm gonna put in 5. Now let's see if it works. I'm gonna run it again and see if it works. If it doesn't work, that means it's not going to support. But if it does, you can see that it is giving me 25 because it's using your variable over here, which is 20, and also adding it up with 5. Okay, so that is how it exactly works. Like you can also put in like two, like you can put in two variables at the same time. Let me just do it like how it actually works. So let's say I'm going to do is cut this off, and I'm going to put this echo later on instead of that. So I'm going to put this variable as something definitive, just like we did on, variable data or like variable data. Okay, so I'm going to type in equal over here, and in equal, I'm going to do is put in another variable, which is going to be over here. And in this variable, I'm going to type in num. And here I'm going to do is type in plus, I'm going to type in 5. So now this has turned into 25, right? But the next time what I'm going to do is going to type in echo. Here in echo, I'm going to type in my variable. And this has turned into like a double variable, which I can like see. And if you want to add in more like addition or like subtraction in between, you can also put that. Okay, you can also put that like in here. So let's say I'm going to put in plus. Okay. So as this is plus, now I'm going to do is run it without debugging and see if it works. If it does not work, now I'm going to do is change that plus or minus sign over there and restore it. I can see that this has turned into 45. Okay, but I'm going to do is remove it. And first off, if I restore it or like refresh it, it's not going to work. I'm going to do is run it without debugging, press on yes. I'm going to do is this, yes. And I'm going to go over to my web browser and refresh it. I can see that this has turned into 25. So that is how it basically works. Okay, now let's say I'm going to use the ABS or the ABS code. Okay, so I'm going to do is cut it off. Now here what I'm going to do is going to be typing in echo. The next time what I'm going to do is type in ABS, which is also a command. And here in between the bracket, I'm going to do is type in minus 200. And as I've used 200, I'm going to do is close it with the semicolon. And now I'm going to do is run it without debugging. Do is retry as admin, press on yes, go over to my web browser, refresh it. I can see that this has given me 200. So the next thing what I'm going to do is going to be echo pow. So I'm going to do is type in echo pow. Here what I'm going to do is going to be typing in another 2 or 4 or like whichever number you want to use. Let's say I'm at 3 and then type in 6. Now as I've typed in 6, I'm going to do is run it without debugging. So as this is debugged, so I'm going to retry it as admin and go over to my web browser again and refresh it. And I can see that this is something like this. Okay, then I'm going to do is use another command, which is going to be sqrt, which is also quite similar. So I'm going to do is remove this pow over here. I'm going to do is type in sqrt. And as I've typed in sqrt, I'm going to do is type in my content or type in my value, which is going to be something around 244. Okay, and see if it works. Make sure to like end it with a semicolon. Then you're going to do is run it without debugging, press on yes, retry as admin, and put on yes again, go over to your web browser, refresh it, and I can see this has given me the echo sqrt of 244. Okay, so this is how you will be basically able to use sqrt. Then I'm going to use another command, which is going to be the max. So if you want to use the max, I'm going to do is cut it off. Let's type in max, which is over here. And here in my max, let's say I'm going to use the same one which I used like a while ago. So I'm going to do is type in either 2, 10. Okay, so after I'm done, I'm going to do is run it. Okay, so if you want to actually see your progress, what you have to do is do the same thing. Run it as run it without debugging or run it with debugging, and then refresh your web browser, and you can see it will give you a result. And among 2 and 10, it's given me the maximum number is 10. We can also use the minimum over here. let's say I'm going to type minimum, which is over here, and run it without debugging. Press on yes, and do the same thing over here. Retry as admin, press on yes, go over to your web browser, refresh it, and can see the minimum number is 2. So now you can see that how it actually works. Okay, then I'm going to put in another one, which is going to be the round. Okay, so here I'm going to type in round over here, echo and round. Well, most of these functions are also available in HTML. So I'm going to do is round. Here I'm going to type in 3 or like some value, just like with decimal 5.67. So I'm going to do is run it without debugging again. Press on yes, retry as admin, press on yes, go over to my web browser, refresh it, and you can see round is around 6. Okay, I'm going to do is type in seal over here, which is another command. And now after I typed in seal, now I'm going to do is type in the same number if you want to, but if you don't want to keep it like that, you can also keep it. So I'm going to do is type in 5.3. I'm going to do is run without debugging, press on yes, run the administrator, open up my browser, refresh it. You can see it is still 6. Okay, and you can also use floor. So here I'm going to use the floor command, how it works. Now I'm going to do is type in, let's say 5.9 and see how it works. What I'm going to do is run it again. As I've run it, go to my web browser, refresh it, and I can see when I use floor, it's obviously going to get me to the previous one, okay, which is going to be 5. So mostly this is how you'll be able to use the numerical commands and numerical functions of HTML in PHP 2. And you can get through each and every one of them by fiddling through each and every one using how it actually works, okay. So you have to do is like, you know, use them for a couple of times and then you will get the hold of it. So thank you for watching this video, and if you didn't understand a part, please let us know, and then we will get you through the process and guide you through the process. So let's move on to our next lesson. Welcome back to our lesson of PHP. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how we can get the info or the data from the user or from PHP. Well, there is a couple of methods of how you'll be able to get that. First method is going to be this data method, which we put directly, and we put it on PHP and then make it like appear on our web browser, just like this. But there are a couple of methods of how you'll be able to get those data from specific users too. So to do that, there are going to be server method, which is going to be a quite like complex method. But as this is the beginner lesson of how you'll be able to use, you know, PHP while using HTML at the same time, that means I'm not going to be showing you that method of how you'll be able to get it from, you know, different users or different data, okay? But I'm going to be showing you how you'll be able to get past that barrier and make sure that your data is taken as PHP, or PHP takes it and then makes it visible on your screen, and also your cloud info. So first off, as we already have a HTML structure, so what I'm going to do is cut this off. Here the first command which I'm going to type is going to be an HTML command, which is going to be form action, which is over here. Okay, now you can see the form action tag has appeared over here. Now after that, what I'm going to do is going to be typing in equal. And as I've typed in equal, I'm going to do is put in double quotation. Now as I've typed in double quotation, now I'm going to type in this name, which is going to be index.php. Now as I've typed in index.php, the next thing what I'm going to type is going to be the method. So from here, after that, I'm going to do is put in a space, and then here I'm going to type method. Okay, so that after I get the method, I'm going to do is going to be typing in equal again, and here I'm going to do is type in get. Now the next thing I'm going to do is close off this tag, or the opening tag. Okay, so the next thing what I'm going to do is going to be typing in form over here again, which is going to be the closing form. Type in form, and I'm going to do is close it off. Now, as I've typed it off, now I have my form tag over here on PHP. I'm going to do is make some spaces over here now as I have form. So the next thing what I'm going to type is going to be my input. So in between it, I'm going to type in my input tag. So let's say I'm going to type in input. Now here input, I'm going to do is type in input type. As I have my input type, I'm going to type in equal, double quotation. Don't put in a space, just put in double quotation, and then put in the text. Let's say after I'm done, I'm going to do is type in equal again, type in name, equal. Let's say type in name over here. The name is name and the text is text. Now you'll be able to get, let's say, a table from this, okay? So I'm going to do is close it off again. Now as I've closed it off, now we have our form, right? So the next thing what I'm going to do is run it without debugging. Press on yes, retry as administrator first. Press on yes, and then refresh it. You can see this parse error or syntax error might appear up. Well, that is sometimes, or like that appears sometimes when you're like doing a mistake. So what I'm going to do is check on it again. Now you can see that we have our PHP, closing PHP. I'm going to do is make sure that all of the like commands are visible. Now let's say we have our form. You can see our form. Then we have is our action. What I'm going to do is make sure that there is no space in between. Index.php. Then we have our method. And we have is our form over here again. I'm going to do is run it again and see if it works. Press on yes. Retry as admin. Type in yes. You will see an interface. Refresh it. If this parse error still appears up, then what you're going to do is put in another one. So here, let me just type in another content. Let's say here you have to put in name. Okay, so I'm going to is put in name before it. Now we have our form. What I'm going to do is retry it again and see if it works. And make sure to see that each and every of the content are intact and all the commands are like inside PHP tag or the PHP command, okay? As all of our, commands have been perfect. So the next thing we're gonna do is take this, closing PHP, Control X, and paste it over here. Not at the end, but here, okay? Because this is not in between PHP. But just like I told you that it will be inside PHP, but it's outside of PHP. We only want the server to term it as PHP, but not this content, because when we are using this form tag, it is already turned to be HTML. And now you can see in my web browser, I have this box and this table. You can see that I have this name, and another like advantage and interesting thing is that you can also type in your name over here. And you can see this is how forms and tables like these are made online, okay? And this is how it exactly works. Now the next thing what I'm going to do is how you will get that is that I'm going to type in another command which I typed in first, which is going to be input, and then I'm going to do is input type, which is over here. So input type is going to be submit, okay? So put in double quotation. I'm going to type in submit. I'm going to do is close up the double quotation over here, and I'm going to do is close up the tag, and I'm going to run it again without debugging. Press on yes, retry as admin, and you will see a pop-up will appear. You're just going to type in this yes and refresh the web browser. Now you can see we have our submit, and this is how you'll be able to get information from users online. Well, this is a bit complex sometimes to do, but let's say I'm going to type in my name and it'll say now people are going to submit it, and obviously you're going to get that content over here. You're right, you're going to see that has appeared up on my web browser. Now if I type in more, now you can see we also have it saved, and that is how people actually get that saved on a web browser, and how the web browser actually saves it. Now let's say I'm going to type in another one. Let's say Tom Brady, hit on submit. You can see now it's Tom Brady. Now if I typed on it, and you can see the web browser has already saved it as the name which you used previously. So you can like just click on any one you want, and then it will directly put in the one you used. So let's just go over here, and as we're done with submit, now let's say I'm gonna do is put in another one which is going to be a bit different. Here, as we are done with the form, now I'm gonna type in a break. So I'm gonna type in BR over here and close it off. The next thing I'm gonna do is put in the PHP code again, but I'm gonna close it off too. So here I'm gonna do is type in like question and then type in PHP, and after that I'm gonna type in echo, and after that I'm gonna do is type in this question and then close it off again. Now you can see that this has appeared up, but as I've used name over here so that the name appeared over there, but I want that to echo over here. So if I want that to echo over here, so I'm gonna type in like a variable. So I'm gonna type in this, and I'm gonna type in underscore, type in get. You can see over here is get. That is how it exactly works. I'm gonna do is open my double, the second bracket, and after my second bracket I'm gonna type in name. Put in a double quotation first and type in name. Now as I have it over here, and it will appear right over here when I refresh it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is run it, okay, and see if it works. Right, debugging, press on yes, yes again, yes. Now I'm gonna do is refresh it, and I can see the name has appeared over here, which is Tom Brady. Now what I'm gonna do is Saka Otaru. I'm gonna do is submit it, and now you can see the name has appeared over here. And that is how basically the websites gather your name, the admins or the users of the website or the manager of the website gets the name very easily, and as that is saved very easily. Then you can also save that name and print that name later on. That's like totally up to you, but to get that, what you have to do is use this command of get. So make sure to use this $, and then underscore, and then all capital letter. Okay, I can see that I also have this drag and drop option over here on Visual Studio, so you'll be able to do all of those over here. Then if you type in username over here, let's say I'm going to type in username, and I'm going to put in user over here. Now as I've typed in user, I'm going to do is run it without debugging. Now as I've typed in debugging, I'm going to press on yes, retry it as admin, and press on yes again, and then refresh your browser. And now you will see that this warning will appear up. If this warning appears up, the next thing what you're going to do is put in this code over here, and then it will be solved. So I'm going to do is, here I'm going to type in echo, as I want this to echo. So I'm going to do is type in your name is, and after that I'm going to do is press on a space, run it without debugging, press on yes, run it as admin, yes, refresh it, and you can see that your name is like this. Okay, so if you type in your name, let's say I'm going to type in Tom Brady, hit on submit, and you can see that this has appeared up and the error has been removed. So until you put in your name over here, it might show you up as an error because it is echoing. Okay, so if it does not have any data, it's going to show up as an error. So you have to put in your data first, and then what you're going to do is press on submit, and only then you will get the result without any error. And that is how you'll be able to get the user input. Then you can also put different type of names. You can let's say you can put an age over here and do the same thing. What I'm going to do is put the same thing over here. I'm going to type in age. Then after age, I'm going to do is put in colon. Now the age is going to be kind of like the same thing, but before that, you're going to put in a break over here. So I'm going to type in BR. Now as I have the break, I'm going to put the same thing. I'm going to put in input type, type in equal. I'm going to type in double quotation, text. As I have my text, I'm going to close my double quotation. Now here I'm going to do is type in age equal double quotation. Then I'm going to type in age again. So as I've typed in age again, so I'm going to do is close it off, close off the tag, and that is basically it on how you'll be able to get that. And down over there, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Here I'm going to do is, as I have my BR, if you don't have your BR over here, put in the break. I'm going to put in BR over here. And I'm going to do is your age is, I'm going to do is copy the same thing, Control C, Control V, PHP echo. Then here I'm going to do is put in the age, okay, put in age. Now as I have my age and also have my code over here, so I'm going to do is run it without debugging. Press on yes, refresh your browser, and if it still doesn't work, you have to refresh it back again, run it without debugging, or debug it back again, retry as admin, press on yes, refresh it, and you can see that I also have my age. You can like increase and decrease it. You can also type in your age. Let's say I'm going to type in 50, submit, and now you can see your age is something like this. First I'm going to do is Tom Brady. I'm going to type in 50. Now first I'm going to do is submit. Your name is Tom Brady, your age is 50. Okay, so if it doesn't work yet, what you're gonna do is type in get and age over here, which is kind of like the same thing. So the method is going to be get, which is we are using it over here. Okay, the get. Okay, what you're gonna do is instead of this age over here, type in like name, which is going to be the same command. And after that, let's say I'm gonna type in and then I'm going to do is type in an age, which is going to be 50. I'm going to do is submit it, and you can see the name is this and the age is this. So that is basically how you'll be able to get info and data from users online. So thank you for watching this video, and let's move on to the next lesson where I'm going to be showing you the basic use of calendar and building a basic calendar. Welcome back to our lesson of PHP. In our previous lesson, we learned about how we can get input from users online. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how we are going to build a basic calculator by using the codes in PHP. Well, in the previous lesson, we've also showed you how you'll be able to summation and how you'll be able to do mathematical terms by using PHP and all of the codes. And that is quite simple to do. So here we are going to make the calculator as a software and build up the structure over on PHP by putting all of the codes. So first things first, what I'm going to do is keep some of these contents or keep some of these actions over here. But like after that, I'm going to do is cut the things off. So I'm going to do is cut these, which I don't need. So I'm going to do is keep this form. And I'm going to do is remove them. I'm going to keep this form, input and form. Okay, so because we are going to need them for various purposes. And one thing you have to keep in mind that you have to put the name of the file or the folder which you are using, which you can see index.php, and I want that to turn into the calculator as a software. So as we are making a software which is kind of like very basic, so without any further ado, let's just jump into the lesson because this is going to be a bit complex. Is going to be putting up our command. So the first command what we're going to do is type in input type. So the input type is going to be the first number, the second number, or the third number which you are going to use. First I'm going to do is type in this, and here I'm going to type in input type. And as I've typed in input type, I'm going to do is type in equal, and I'm going to do is double quotation, and here I'm going to type in number. Okay, and close with the parentheses, and here I'm going to do is name it. Okay, and make sure to put in number because you don't want text to be there. Okay, you want it to be numbers all the time, and you can name it to be number 1. Okay, or let's just say I'm going to keep that to be named first. Okay, let's say first expression. I'm going to close it off. I'm going to do is close off this, and I'm going to do the same thing over here, which is going to be the same. I'm going to put in a line break first. Now, as I have my first input box, I'm going to put in my second input box, and how many numbers I want to put. I can make more and more input boxes. So I'm going to do is copy this, which is going to be kind of the same thing. Let's say I'm going to close it and paste it over here. Input type is going to be number, and this is going to be the second expression. So as this is the second expression, now the input type is going to be submit. Okay, which is like very simple. You can also keep that to be number 2 and all of those. But here what I'm going to do is finish the form over here, which is going to be input type to submit. And as I want my result to be somewhere else, so I'm going to open up my PHP tag again, PHP, and I want the result to echo out. Okay, so I'm going to type in echo and close it off. And first I'm going to do is use the variable of get, open this. I'm going to do is open up the parentheses. I'm going to do is double quotation first, and here I'm going to do is type in num1, or like first expression. Now as this is first expression, what I'm going to do is add it up, but right outside of the box, plus. I'm going to do the same thing, open up my variable and underscore get, second bracket, double quotation, second expression. Now as I have my second expression, I'm going to close off my PHP bracket, close it off. Now as I have my PHP done, and that is how the body will end and the HTML will end too. And here I'm going to type in answer is. Now as I have my answer, what I'm going to do is first off, without debugging, press on yes, retry as admin 2, yes, refresh it. I can see this is how it will look like. The first thing I'm going to do is type in 34, 67, submit. If it's not working, then I'm going to do is type in 3, or submit. If it's still not working, then you have to like check on it again. Okay, so now what you're gonna do is put up this number 1 all together. Do not put like do not put spaces in between them. I'm gonna do is type in num1, and here I'm gonna do is run it as an administrator or without debugging, as I already have it debugged. So I'm gonna do is refresh it first. Now I'm going to do is type in my code or number, let's say 78, and I'm going to put in 90, submit, and then I have my answer. So I'm going to do is 20, let's say I want 60, submit, 80, I'm going to put in 100, now let's say I'm going to put in 3000, submit, and I also have my answer. You can do the same thing over here. Let's say I'm going to put in minus, and now as I have my minus, I'm going to do is run without debugging, press on yes, retry as admin, yes, refresh it. Now it's going to be a bit different. Let's say from here I'm going to do is type in 700. From 700 I'm going to minus 400. Submit, and you can see that I have 300. You can do the same thing. I can like multiply, divide all of them together. So I'm going to do is multiply it this time, run it without debug, press on yes, retry as admin. I'm going to do is let's say 6 into 4, which is going to be 24. You can see that it is multiplied. You can use like a lot of numbers, 64 into 89, submit, there I have my answer. If you want to divide it, then type in this oblique or this slash over here and run it without debugging, yes, admin. I'm going to put in, let's say 9 divided by 3, it's going to give me 3 as answer. You can see it is giving me 3 as answer, 9 divided by 3, that's like very simple, right? Then we can put in more numbers over here. Let's say I'm going to put in BR again. Let's say BR, close it off. I'm going to copy this, Control C. After that, I'm going to do is Control V. But here, I'm going to put in number 3. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, put in a space. After that, I'm going to put in this. Let's say I'm going to do like summation first. So I'm going to put in summation. And I'm going to do the same thing, putting in my variable. I'm going to put in this, GET. Then second bracket, I'm going to put in double quotation, number 3. Now as I have all of it done, so I'm going to do the same thing, run it without debugging, press on yes. I'm going to do is refresh it, okay. now we have it. Okay, if it's like this, you're gonna get most of the time like 2 variables and 2 numbers which you can put in this web browser. You can see that I will be able to use it. So let's say I'm going to do is 5, 5, 5, 15 it is. You can see my answer is like this. You can put in more. Let's say I'm going to put in last one, Control C, put in enter. I'm going to put in a break again. I'm going to put in enter, paste it. Let's say I'm going to do is type in number 4. And here I'm going to do is do the same thing, addition. You can also use multiplication however you want to. Put in the expression, whichever one you want. Put in this variable. Let's say I'm going to type in this one again, get, open up the second bracket, double quotation, number 4. Now as I'm done, I'm going to do is run it without debugging, press on yes, retry as admin, yes, I'm going to refresh the page, now I have 4. So what we're going to do here is going to be making it 20, 5, 5, 5, 5. Now you will see the answer will be 20. Now if I change this expression over here, let's say I'm going to put in minus. So after that, the fourth one is going to be minus. I'm going to do is run without debugging, press on yes, retry as admin, press on yes. I'm going to do is refresh it. And you can see that I have my answer to be 10. So I'm going to do is keep this 6, 6, 6. And as the answer is 18, now I want 8 of it minus. Okay, I'm going to press on submit. Now I already have my 10 as an answer. And that is how you'll be able to make a basic calculator by using PHP on your web browser. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome to another lesson of PHP. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how we can make a Mad Libs game by using PHP. Well, when you hear that we are going to create a Mad Libs game, you might think that it is a lot complex, but it actually is not. So what you have to do is just follow the couple of steps what we're gonna do in this lesson. So without any further ado, let's just jump into the lesson. In our previous lesson, we learned about how we can make a basic, a basic calculator. So from here, what we're going to do is just remove the input over here. And then we're going to keep the form action input type and also the form. And we're going to also remove the result, what we're going to get. But like after that, what we're going to do is do the same thing and put up most of the content inside of there. So first off, what I'm going to do is keep the form action, which is going to be our index.php. Method is going to be get. Input type is going to be submit. And in our form, after that, what we're going to do is put in 2 breaks. Okay. So I'm going to type in br, close, and put in another br, close. So now, next what we're going to do is open up another PHP because we already closed up our PHP over here. And we're going to close up or open up our PHP over here too. So I'm going to do is open up question PHP. And after a couple of spaces, we're not going to close it, but inside there, we want content to echo. So I'm going to do is type in echo. And here in echo, what we're going to do is type in those contents which we want to put. So here in echo, I'm going to type in the contents. So the first content is going to be this is a lesson of PHP. Close it off. Now as I've closed it off, I'm going to do is put in a break first inside of this tag or inside of this double quotation, br, close it off. Now I'm going to end it with a semicolon. Now we are done with this. I'm going to copy the same thing but put in a different content in between them. Control C, hit on enter, paste, hit on enter, paste. So I'm going to have 3 lines, okay? So let's say this is a lesson of PHP. Then I'm going to close it off. Okay, instead of this, let me type in this is red in color. I'm going to close it off. Found a berry. Found a berry. This is red in color. I'm going to cut this data over here. And here I'm going to type in I love this. Okay, so now we are done with putting in our content inside. So when I put in my content inside, now I'm gonna do is going to be, so let's say I want this berry to appear in a color, or let's say I'm gonna cut it off again. Okay, so let's say that I love blue. Instead of this blue, I'm gonna put in the color. Okay, I'm gonna close it off with this, let's say color, I'm going to close off this. I want this to appear in a color, and obviously put in a space, and this is red in color. I want it to be the plural noun. Okay, this is, I'm going to do is open up that plural noun, close this off, make some spaces. Now the last one I'm going to do is I love this and I want this to be someone else or like a celebrity. So I'm going to type in celebrity, close this off too. Now as we are done with these, now I'm going to do is put in the content which I actually want. Now as those will appear over here, so I'm going to do is first off, I'm going to run this without debugging. Yes. Oh. Now I'm going to do is refresh it. Now you will see the syntax error will appear up. Okay, but inside of the syntax error, you are going to find out another content in between them. So first off is going to be our form, action, index, then our method. Okay, and another method is going to be our br, which we put like twice. Okay, you see this form, which is going to be form, then we have is action, and then we have the name or the file which is open, which is index.php, and then the method is going to be get. And close up this, input type is going to be submit, which we already see. Then we have our closing form, and then we have our br. So in between them, we have our echo, which is color, then plural noun and celebrity. Even though I didn't put in the content, that is why it's showing me this parse error. If you see that I remove this, those content will appear over here. Okay, so let me just show it to you for an example. So I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to press on Ctrl Z. And I'm going to do is just show it off how it actually works. I'm going to run it without debugging again. Press on yes. And refresh it. Sometimes you will still see this parse error. But why it is appearing is because we don't have those contents over here. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing. Go over to edit or C and redo the process. I'm going to do is redo all of the things which I'm like did. I'm going to press on Ctrl Y and make those to be over here. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is put in the color in between our form action. So here I'm going to do is type in color. If that's the color, so I'm going to do is open it up, some like colon. I'm going to do is open up the tag, and I'm going to do is input type. Now here I'm going to do is input type to be, let's say, the color which we want to put equal, and I'm going to put in the text, double quotation, text, and then I'm going to put in double quotation again, close, and type in name. After the name, I'm going to do is equal, double quotation again, and color. Okay, so after color is put, I'm going to do is double quotation, close the bracket. I'm going to do is put in the br again so that there is line break in between them. Now next thing I'm going to put is going to be the plural noun. So first I'm going to do is copy the whole thing so that I can follow the same process or the same structure. Control C, enter, Control V. I'm going to go up. I'm going to copy all of it. Control C. Now as all of them are put, now I'm going to do is type in plural noun, and here the last one is going to be celebrity. Now as we have our celebrity over here, okay, so you have to do the same thing in color. So I'm going to type in plural noun over here, plural noun. Here in the name, you are going to type in celebrity. So as we're done with celebrity, make sure to put in breaks in between each and every one of those so that you can like put in or like submit in the content so that it appears over there. And each one of these variables are going to source up the result. Okay, so in PHP, so I'm going to do is put in our result. So I'm going to put in the content over here and put in the variable. So I'm going to put in the variable code or variable command. I'm going to put in color. Let's say we have our color equal. So I'm going to put in my get code, get. Now as I have my get, I'm going to close it off with my second bracket over here, put in double quotation. And this is going to be the source what we're going to put in our, let's say, the game. So let's say I'm going to put in color again. So this is the color, and I'm going to close it off with my semicolon. I'm going to put the same thing or do the same process on plural noun too. Plural noun. I'm going to type in equal, and obviously I'm going to put in my get code or this variable over here, but make sure to like keep that to be together. Plural noun equal. I'm going to put the same thing equal, make a variable. Let's say type in get. What I'm going to do is open up my second bracket, put the same thing, plural noun, close it off, semicolon, and I'm going to do the same thing, make another variable. Now for the last one, we're going to type in celebrity, we'll type in equal, and then our variable. Now this time I'm going to put in get again, secondary bracket, double quotation, celebrity. Now I'm going to close it off again. Now as we have all of our sources that we need, so like for variables, so then we can put it inside our story. So next thing what I'm going to do is going to be using our color variable. So here I'm going to put in our color variable over here, which is going to be variable and then color. Then we're going to do the same thing with the plural and also celebrity. So I'm going to put in this red in our plural noun, and do the same thing with celebrity. You can just cut it off and just use that variable over here. Then we have our celebrity too. I'm going to cut this off. Then we have all of our needs and all of our requirements and all of our sources. And after we have all of our sources, then we're gonna do is find out the form, or let's see if the form works. Now as I refreshed my web browser, and now you can see that we have our color, plural noun, and also our celebrity. Then we can put in our content and put in our information. So let's say put in magenta. I'm going to do is type in magenta, and plural noun I'm going to type in phones. Here I'm going to do is type in celebrity. Let's say Tom Brady. I'm going to put in submit, and you can see I love magenta. This is red in the plural noun, and I love Tom Brady. So you can see that all of them has been put down, and this is how exactly the the Mad Libs game is actually constructed. And if you feel like that you did a couple of mistakes in between, then what you're gonna do is find out those problems in between. Let's say we have our plural noun over here, but inside it's not showing our content, and it's also showing us warning unidentified array key plural noun in C. So I'm gonna do is find out the 19th line, which is going to be plural noun. So here I'm gonna do is find in our content where we did as a mistake. So here I'm gonna cut this off, plural noun. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. You can keep it as plural noun. I'm gonna do is run it without debugging, yes. Retry as admin, yes. And I'm gonna do is refresh it, and I'm gonna do is type in phones over here, submit, and you can see that phones has appeared up. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to type in pink, plural noun to be PCs. I'm going to do is do the celebrity, let's say Onikuma. I'm going to do submit, and now I have all of the contents, and I have my Mad Libs game totally constructed. So this is how it exactly works. So now you can see that I love pink. This is red in PCs. I love Onikuma. So this is how it exactly works and how it is constructed. You can put in more content however you want. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome back to our lesson of PHP. In this lesson, we are going to learn about URL parameter. And what is URL parameter? When you are sticking it up or sticking your PHP file or document up on a URL, that is called URL parameter, and how you will be able to place it. So we are going to show you all of the steps about it. In our previous lesson, we learned about how we can make a Mad Libs game, and the structure is over here. yet it is still on .php programming, okay? But when you are putting that on URL and also World Wide Web, that is what the URL parameter starts, okay? Because you can obviously start off, and PHP is obviously used in our web browser and obviously like our web parameter, okay? So without any further ado, let's just jump into the lesson where I'm going to give you the basics about how you can use your PHP document in your URL. So the first thing I'm going to do is obviously remove those because I'm not going to be needing them. So I'm going to do is remove them. Now I'm going to cut them off, and I'm just going to keep the input type because that is our action, okay? And we are mostly going to need those for like our whole course. So first off, we're going to keep our form method to be action and index PHP and method to be get. You can also use different ones, but I prefer using the get because that is like one of the mostly used one. And I'm going to do is type in our name. And here on our name, I'm going to do is open up our column, and here I'm going to put in our input type. Input type. Then we have our input type, and I'm going to type in equal, and here is going to be our text. So type in text, and as our text has opened up, I'm going to put in our name of the text. So our name is going to be name, okay? So I'm going to open it up again, double quotation. We're going to name it as name and close it off. And at the end, we're going to put in our BR tag because obviously we don't want all of the content to appear in one line. And yet you can see that I'm not still putting them in my PHP tag or my PHP command because I want them to like cooperate with HTML and also PHP at the same time. So obviously, even though if it's like a PHP folder, I want them to be visible on my web browser as HTML. So both of them have connection. So I'm going to do is close off my double quotation over here and then put in my BR, which is going to be causing a line break in between them. And after I'm done, I'm going to be putting my input type, and the input type is going to be the same, which is going to be form and also submit. And as I have my submit, I'm going to close it off with my form. So I have all of my sources done. And if I want to put in my source and content over there, I'm going to put in those contents later on. Then I'm going to be putting in BR so that I am going to like, I want there to be a line break in between them. I'm going to put in BR as there is a break. Then I want my data or my result to echo. Okay, so I'm going to cut all of these off. And here I'm going to put in my question and then PHP. Now I want all of the results to appear in PHP and also echo. So I'm going to type in echo over here. And then I'm going to use our variable, which is going to be get. And as I have my get, I'm going to open up my second bracket. And as I opened up my second bracket, I'm going to put in my name, double quotation, name. I'm going to do is close it off, put like semicolon. So as this is done, I'm going to do is run it up, run without debugging. Yes, retry as admin. And then what I'm going to do is refresh my browser, and you can see this appears up. So what happened is that you have to close in your PHP, question PHP, and then you're going to see through them for a while and then run it back again without debugging. Press on yes, admin, and then I'm going to refresh it. You will see it will appear up like this. I'm going to put in my name. Let's say I'm going to put in Tom, submit it. I can see Tom has appeared up. One thing you have to learn about this URL parameter is that when you type in your name, that this name has appeared up on my screen. And also it has appeared on my URL. You can see the name is Tom. One thing you can do is like over here, let's type in Dave and hit on enter. You can see that the name over here has changed into Dave. I didn't even have to put in my name over here and submit it, yet it used the URL parameter and changed the content of our page directly through the URL, not even through our PHP. Let's say I'm going to do is type in Steve, hit on submit, and you can see it has appeared over here. But you can also bypass it through here. You can like change the value over here. Let's say I'm going to do is type in John, hit on enter, and you can still see that it is changing our content over here. So that is what you have to keep in mind, that you can change your source, you can change your variable by using your URL parameter without even using our PHP sometimes. And that's not like always, because I'm just showing you the basics of how it works. If you have like a perfect structure of how like not to compromise a parameter and not to compromise specific web page, then obviously it's not going to work. So it's going to work like sometimes, but not most of the times. And obviously it's going to have like security and all of those when it's on like an authorized web page. So when you are using your own web browser and your own web page, you can like change through them step by step. But obviously it's not going to contain all of the info that another user is going to put. But you will find out the value will change in your web browser. Now I'm going to put in ampersand over here and let's see if it works. Ampersand, and I'm going to put in age equal 50. Let's see if it works. I can see that it is not working. Okay, because this is the age value and I have put in my text to be text, which is the input type, which is not going to work. And if it's not working, then what I'm going to do is type in and I'm going to do is type in 60. I'm going to do is refresh it or hit on enter, and you can still see it is not working because this is not the parameter the URL can like validate. So here, instead of name, you can like type in age. So when you like type in age, then you will be able to like put in the age over here. Then first I'm going to do is close it off and then put in my age first. So just as I changed the parameter to age from name, now you can see that 60 has appeared over here. So what you have to do is change the parameter. So I'm going to do is do the same thing. Let's say I'm going to type in name, refresh it. Now you can see it is not working. Then what you have to do is run it up without debugging. Yes. Retry admin, press on yes and refresh it. And you can see John has appeared up because this is only validating the name now. And next thing what you can do is obviously use another get over here and put in the age too. Let's say I'm going to type in plus. I'm going to put in the get code again, which is going to be using the variable. I'm going to put in this get. Now as I've put in get, I'm going to do is second bracket. Here I'm going to put in double quotation. I'm going to put in age too. So as I've put in age over here, and I'm going to do is run it as like debugging. Yes, retries admin. Yes, and let's see how it works. You can see this as a fatal error because now the PHP or your web URL is not taking it, okay, or validating the content over here. So you have to keep that in mind, that you want like a lot of content to be available over here, but obviously it's not going to take all of those content over here. You can still see the name. There is just name over here, so it's not going to appear up. And yet you can see in my PHP on line 15, you can see in line 15 I added that up, and obviously it's not a mathematical term which can appear over here by using text and also the number. So what you have to do is use one of the variable which you can use in your web browser and your URL parameter so that it is visible on your web browser. So I'm going to do is run it again, and obviously it's going to start working. So I'm going to retry as admin, press on yes as we already have our name, refresh. Now you can see as I have no name over here, so I'm going to type in Jack, hit on enter, and you can see Jack has appeared up. So now you know most of the URL parameters, how those actually work in a web browser by using PHP. So thank you for watching this video and also for staying with us until the end. Let's move on to our next lesson. Welcome to our course of MySQL. So this is the starting and learning MySQL brief about SQL. So let's start off by knowing the brief of what MySQL is and also all about it. So first off, when we are trying to know about what MySQL is and how to work with it, you have to know the basics. So let's start off with database, because this is all about database and working online, or all of the things or content which are put online to structure a web structure and also a web page. So about the database, any collection of related information such as phone book, shop list, to-do list, 5 best friends on like let's say Facebook user, bias, structure, and all of those. Then we are going to learn about the database, how they can be stored. There are different ways. There is paper method, computer method, PowerPoint method, and also comments box method. So sometimes you see that in different medias, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all of those have comment section. In those dedicated slots, you can put in your idea and also store them for later purpose so that you can get those ideas. Then let's learn about database management system, which is also called DBMS, a special software program that is going to help users to create and maintain a database. Because if you don't have a perfect structure and also maintenance, it's not going to work, and it will be very hard for a user to get those information when they need it. So what happens when you use DBMS is that easy to manage large amount of information all at the same time. It also gives you security management. Then it also gives you backup, importing and exporting data, concurrency, and interacts with software application. Because obviously when you are using database or DBMS all at the same time, obviously you will need a software or some help to manage all of those data at the same time. So obviously while using DBMS and also MySQL, it's going to help a lot to interact with software application and also for maintaining a large amount of data. Then let's learn about programming language and also CRUD. So CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. Well, this is the motivation. So if a person or a user follows these, well, one is very much like close to finding success in DBMS and also MySQL. There are two types of databases. One is relational database, and second is non-relational or no SQL or not just SQL, which is just no. So in the relational database, or which is SQL, it organizes data into one or more tables, because obviously if you're managing data, you might need a table, and a table is going to help a user to maintain all the data and see it whenever they want to, and it is easier to find. So each table has columns and rows just like you see in Microsoft Excel, and a unique key identifies each row, and all of those rows and also columns have identified unique key. Then in non-relational or no SQL or not just SQL, organizes data or organized data is anything but a traditional table, just like the main one you see in Microsoft Excel, which is traditional table. Then it has key value stores, which are, let's say, A1, A2, B1, B2, and all of those. Then we have is documents, but here it's a bit different. The documents are saved in JSON and XML file. So these are also a type of extensions, which you will see later on in this course. Then it's going to be graphs. Graph is also another effective method of storing your data and seeing it, and also visualizing it and observe it. Then we have is the flexible tables, which is that you can edit it and also position it and customize it just the way you want it. That is the flexible table. Now let's know about relational databases and how those actually look like. So here we have two tables. One is student table and one is users table. Both of them are correlated. Let's start off with the first one. We have is ID, name, major, username, password, email, which is kind of the basics of a table. Here you have, according to each of those requirements, such as ID, name, major, we have it, fulfilled. Let's say 1. Then we have is Tim. His major is chronology. Then username Timothy, and then password is WordPass, and email, which I didn't give. Okay. So this is the kind of table which you can use, such as relational databases, and how these are example. Then let's know about what relational database is more briefly. First off, Relational Database Management System, which is also known as RDBMS, helps user create and maintain a relational database. In this, you will find out MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL, and MariaDB, which I showed you in the previous course of PHP. Then MariaDB and also MySQL is also connected to PHP. Okay, so here we are going to directly work through those. Then we know about structured query language, which is SQL. So that is what MySQL stands for. So here, standards are like standardized language for interacting with RDBMS, which is Relational Database Management System. Then it is used to perform CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete. Then we have is operations as well as other administrative tasks, which is going to be helped with relational database, which is the user's management and system and security, backup, and all of those. which is used to define tables and structure. So relational database and also structured query language helps you in a lot of ways. Then SQL code used on one RDBMS is not always portable to another without modification. So without modification, you might not be able to open it up. Then let's learn about non-relational database, which is NoSQL, not just SQL, which is just no. So non-relational database management system helps user create and maintain a non-relational database. And the softwares or the services which you can use for this non-relational databases are MongoDB, DynamoDB, and Apache Cassandra. And also we have Fireball. Well, there are a lot of these, but you can use these couple of softwares or services to run your non-relational database. Then implementation specifics. Any non-relational database falls under this category. So there's no set language standards, such as we learned on this, which is structured query language. We don't need that in non-relational database. Any non-relational database falls under this category, just like I told you. So most NRDBMS will implement their own language for performing CRUD and administrative operations on the database. Then non-relational databases, not just SQL, which is kind of the same thing. Then the last thing we have to know about is going to be our database queries. Queries are requested or requests made to the database management system for specific information. Well, this is kind of like a user asking for service, and those are the queries. As the database's structure become more and more complex, it becomes more difficult to get the specific pieces of information we want, because MySQL and all of this coding like PHP and the server information and the database is kind of very complex, because if you are not case sensitive, obviously it's not going to work, and sometimes it doesn't even give you the exact result until it is like totally perfect. So you have to like be very cautious when you are working with this database queries. A Google search is also a query. So just like I told you, it is also like asking for a service. Let's say a user is wanting for service or needs to know about something. Obviously, the service given to that person or the administration or the admins that are giving that service is kind of called the database queries and also the service. Then let's wrap it up the whole thing and give you the gist of what we have to know about the database before starting MySQL. Database is any collection of related information. Let's say you are asking for some service from a hospital or need to know about anything of it. So asking the service and then getting the result is kind of the database and also the collective information which you got. Then computer are great for storing databases, which we know, which is like very basic. Database management system, DBMS, makes it easy to create, arrange, and secure a database. DBMS will help you to perform the CRUD operations and also the administrative tasks, just like we know are known just a while ago. Then the two types of databases, which are relational and non-relational. Thus you get more services from different type of service and also softwares. Then relational database use SQL and store database in tables with rows and columns with assigned keys. The non-relational database store data using other data structure. So now you know all about DBMS and also all of the functions and all of the briefs you need to know about databases before starting MySQL. So without any further ado, let's just jump into our first lesson of starting with MySQL. Welcome to our first lesson of SQL or MySQL. So just like I told you that you have to learn about database before learning MySQL. Well, MySQL is also related to PHP because if you've seen my previous course on PHP, you already know what MySQL is. So the main thing about MySQL is getting the database and into the right place. So here you can see that I have my table over here. And obviously the tables are also related to database because all of the data are going to be put in a table. So how the relational and non-relational database works, I'm going to be explaining you in this lesson. So just like I told you that it is a lot like Excel, you can see from over here, which is kind of like a traditional cell and also which is functional. Well, so it works on both like relational and non-relational. which is SQL and non-SQL. So first off, what you need to know about is the table. So just like you can see that it is Excel, which is open because I'm just going to show you the example of how it works. That is why I'm using Excel right now. You can see in my Excel sheet that I have a couple of data over here, and here I have columns and rows. Well, these are all dedicated slots or dedicated cells where you'll be able to put in your database. Now, you can see that I have my category on my row over here at the top. You can see these are also called heading. You can see call ID, date, then the type of calls, description, and all of those. But here you can see that according to those categories, I have my data entered on my rows and columns right below them. And according to them, we also have our source. And that is how you'll be able to create the table and the data which you can work on and entry your own data. Next thing what I'm going to show you is going to be non-traditional database. Well, this is also a specific entry or a variable which you can use just like we used in PHP. And obviously these are known as attributes too. So that is how you'll be able to work in MySQL. Even though it runs within PHP, which goes through like commands and codes and then derives it through MySQL coding and all of those, and then entries it to your web browser so that you can see it. So obviously you're going to need that type of database so that later on when you are trying to find data, you can just put in the requirements and it's going to search it for you. Well, you might feel like it's a lot like VLOOKUP and all of those. Well, it's kind of like that because you are going to search for your data and you are going to need a specific type of data and all of those related to it, okay? So this is how you'll be able to find in data in a table when you are using MySQL, because this is all according and based on database. Now, just like you'd seen previously about the user table. So this is the user table which you'll be able to use. And obviously as MySQL is web-based, so obviously we can show you about the example which I showed you in my previous lesson too. So here you can see that I have my user table. Inside of it, I have user, the name, then let's say we have our password, email, and all of those. Then we can also put in like date created, then type, and all of those too. And that is all based on the user. That is why it is called the user database. Okay. Then we have is the, information database. So it is all about the information. Well, all of it is information, but there is a couple of categories which you can show by using this database. Here we have is our bias. Now we have is our name, then we also have our major. You can also type in a lot of things which you actually need. Let's say you are showing employee ID, then obviously you're going to have a couple of employees and the number of their employee. Then you can put in first name, last name, the date of birth, sex, and then salary, and all of those based on those categories. So this is how exactly databases work. Well, I'm going to show you another database which is going to be a bit different. So I'm going to go over to Excel again. So the database which I'm going to show you is going to be the branch database. So let me just open up this Excel, and here I'm going to type in my data. And here in my data, let's say I'm going to type in branch. So I'm going to type in branch over here. Well, this is a totally different thing. Let's say in our branch, we have 3, 4, and 1. So we have our branch, and let's say this is going to be our branch ID. And here I'm going to put in my branch name. Okay, let's say I'm going to type in name, but it's going to be branch name. And then here I'm going to put in another one. Let's say I'm going to is type in name. And here what I'm going to put is going to be our second thing. Let's say as we have our name, let's just put in our name over here. Then over here, what we're going to do is put in, so as I've typed in my name over here, let me just type in a couple of names. Let's say this is Oxford. And let's say this is Stanford. Okay, so now we have both of our branch name, and you can also put in your manager ID if you want to. Well, that's like totally based on the branch, and you can directly entry it over here too, and it's going to relate it to the whole table. Now let's say we want our suppliers. Okay, if you have obviously like the branch name, branch ID, branch manager, you obviously want the supplies. If you put in supplies, then it's also going to relate to that. You can also put in the supply type and all of those. And obviously those are the type of branch ID which are put in web browser and how you see in a website. Now, if you want clients, just type in clients. Here in clients, let me put in another one. Let's say it is data validated. So I'm going to do is press on cancel. So here I'm going to type in our name. Let's say type in our client and client ID. So it's client ID. Here is going to be client name. And here is going to be our ID. Okay, just like we did on the branch ID too. So you can put in your ID over here according to the data you want, also the name, and then also the ID. Let me just give you an example. Let's say the data ID is 543. The client name is John. And let's say the ID number is 4. So now you have a client ID or a client table too. And you can also relate it to the same table by putting in your data table. Now, just like I told you about the table, obviously there's non-sequential, or which is non-SQL, and there is also SQL, which is structured query language. So just like I told you that structured query language is a language used for interacting with relational database management system, which is RDBMS. Okay, so here what you will be able to do is create, then retrieve, update, and delete data, which also follows the table and which also follows the motivation, which is going to be CRUD, okay? Create, remake, and then delete and update, okay? So here you will be able to also create and manage the database, design and create database table, perform administration tasks, security, user management, import, export data, and that is obviously the thing which is explained over here. Structured query language, which is standard language for interacting with RDBMS, used for performing CRUD, which is operational as well as other administrative tasks, user management, security, backup, etc. Used to define tables and structure. SQL code used on one RDBMS is not always portable with another without modification. So obviously when you want to use it on another RDBMS or SQL, sometimes it doesn't work. So what you have to do is modify it and later on preview it. Again, SQL implementation vary between systems. Not all RDBMS follow the SQL standard to a T. So the concepts are the same, but the implementation may vary. Just like I told you, it's not going to work all the time. As SQL is actually a hybrid language, it's basically 4 types of language in one, which is DQL, DDL, DCL, and DML. So DQL, which is data query language, is used to query the database for information, such as a user is asking for a service and also storing the database inside a web browser or let's say a website. And obviously you're going to get the query database for information. So that is DQL, and get information that is already stored there. So obviously when a person or a user is asking for service or information from a website, obviously sometimes there is like stored database that is like given to that user so that he can fulfill his requirement. So that is DQL. Then we have is data definition language, which is DDL, which is used for defining database or database like management schemas. So there are a lot of schemes that a person can ask for, okay? So there is like a lot of information online. So when a person is actually getting that information according to the schemes and defining the scheme, then that is called DDL or data definition language. Then we have is data control language, which is DCL, which is used for controlling access to the data in the database, such as security and all those purpose. A user and permission management, which is also related to the security of a specific website or a web browser and the structure. Then we have is data manipulation language, which is DML, used for inserting, updating, and deleting data from the database, which also follows the sequence of CRUD. Okay, CRUD, which is like very basic, and also the motive of securing the database and its queries. So a query is a set of instruction given to the RDBMS written in SQL. That tells the RDBMS what information you want to retrieve from you. So tons of data in a DB. So just like I told you about the service of MariaDB, MySQL DB, and all of those are a kind of service, which is often hidden in a complex schema. So obviously, just like I told you that it is related to PHP, and while going through the web, it goes through MySQL and then applies it on your web browser so that you can see it. So obviously it has a complex schema. Then the goal is to only get the data you need. Just like you search on Google web browser about something like about an information that you're trying to get. So there is a couple of codes which I'm going to show it to you right now through Visual Studio Code. So here you can see that I have opened up Visual Studio Code. So here I'm going to start off with typing in my code, and you can see that my extension is still PHP. So over here, I'm going to start off with my HTML. So as I've opened up my, the structure here, let me type in, let's say select, then let's say employee name, employee dot name, which is kind of like a command. Then let's say we want our like h2, let's say employee, you can see from over here, employee, then let me just type in double E over here, and then let's say type in age. So as I want age over here, and we're going to close it off with the select, tag. Then here I'm going to put in from employee, where I'm going to get my data. This is where I'm going to get it. And let's say where I'm going to get it from. So type in where.php, you can do that. But I'm going to do is type in where over here. Even though it's not putting it up like a code or a command, yet when we open up the query section in our practical part, you will see that it will turn into a code. Let's say where we're going to type in employee. And let's say we want the salary. So I'm going to put in my salary. And let's say if it's like greater or like, less than a specific amount. So let's say I'm going to type in 6,000 US dollars. So this is how basically you will be able to get in your data. But if you are using that select tag over at the end, which is also going to work, Control X, I'm going to put it over here at the end, hit on V, and you can see that I have my structure ready. And when you are actually opening up with the server and also with like, PHP and over on your website, then it's going to show you an exact type of data which you require in your database and also your desire. So now you know all of the basics about how MySQL and the databases work, and also how it is related to database and table. So thank you for watching this video, and let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome back to another lesson of MySQL. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how we are going to start practical MySQL. Well, as it is sequential, we are going to start off with how we will be able to install it and where from we are going to install our software. So there are a couple of things which we have to download. There are two types of softwares which you have to download over to use MySQL. So MySQL is going to help you with forming up the database and also do all the queries, because all of this is sequential. So we are going to use another, software, which is PopSQL, which is going to help us to which server we are going to run our SQL queries and all of the database, so that we can store it and use it for later purpose. So there are like a couple of things you have to keep in mind. And obviously MySQL, the structure is a bit complex, but just like we did on our PHP, well, in PHP, we ran our server like through CMD and also our WAMP server, because that is how you'll be able to write in PHP and also make it visible on your screen on your web browser. So like it's similar that if you are trying to type in MySQL or like MySQL, well, and actually apply it directly on your web browser and show it on your web browser, that means that you need a different type of server to run it. And that is why we are going to use MySQL and also PopSQL. So those are two different things, okay? But it's going to offer the same service so that it is appearing on your screen. So let's start off with installing MySQL. So for when you are using like Windows, just type in MySQL, download, hit on enter, and you can see mysql.com will open up. Click on mysql.com, and here you will find out MySQL development issues or developer issues. And you can also build applications through this. Well, this is all related to PHP and also your web browser. So thus it means you have to download it so that it is visible on your screen on your web browser, so that you can run in the queries. So from here, what we're going to do is going to be going down. And after you go down, you will find these options of MySQL community and all of those. You'll be able to go to the download page where you'll be able to download MySQL. So now you can see on this page, we have our download link where you'll be able to download MySQL. Now you can see that if you have a 64-bit PC, then click on this download option, and if you have x80 like 86 and 64-bit zip archive with debug, binaries, and test suite, then you can download this one. Well, obviously you can see the difference of the size of this. So as I only need the zip archive, so I'm going to click on download, and you will see that another tab will open up, or it will directly download from over here. But as I have already downloaded MySQL, so I'm going to be showing you how you will be able to use it without any further problems. But before that, if you are not logged in on MySQL and if you don't have an Oracle account, then you might have to log in with Oracle or sign up and then show it later on, and also like use it for downloads, because all of the server process goes through Oracle. Okay, so that is kind of like a server which is run by MySQL and also PHP. And just like I told you, PHP and the whole document goes through MySQL, this Apache server, and also shows you on your web browser. So after it is downloaded, I'm going to do is install it. Or another method of how you'll be able to download MySQL is through this option. What you're going to do is when you see this page, just click on this go to download page and select on the one which you want, just like I told you. So let's say I'm going to download this 32-bit one because we don't have a 64-bit option. You can select on whichever OS you're running it. So let's say I'm going to do is click on the installer and download it. And you can see that MySQL is installed. So I'm going to do is open it up and install it on my PC so that I can use MySQL without any problems. Then you will see that the pop-up something like this will appear up. And then what you're going to do is do a couple of modifications so that you can get the full functionality and full potential of MySQL on your PC. Now you can see that I have my installation like server or installation pack opened. Now what you're going to do first is that select the suite which you are going to use. So I'm going to suggest you to use the developer default because you are going to get all of the default options through this. But if you want to do it like with some specific motivations and specific purpose, you can also use it with server, you can use clients, then use full, and then if you want to do it custom, you can also use the custom option, which is going to help you with a lot of things. So here I'm going to do is click on custom, click on next, and you can see that this option appears up. From here, what you're going to do is extend this MySQL server, and from there I'm going to do is extend this one too and select the server or select the version you want to use. So I'm going to use the latest version, and then you will be see that there are a lot of these options. So now I'm going to do is open it up again, and here in my application what I'm going to do is select on the 64-bit version. First I'm going to do is click on this application, extend it a bit more. Then what you're going to do is click on the shell, which is over here, MySQL shell, extend it a bit. And from there, you will find this option of this MySQL Shell 8.0, which is kind of like the newest one. So I'm going to extend it a bit more too. And then you will find out the 64-bit version over there. And you can see all of them are over here. So I'm going to do is select on each and every one. And how you'll be able to select that is going to be a bit different. First, I'm going to do is select on this option. From there, I'm going to select on the 64. Then put it on this side. You can see all of them has been selected. Then from application, I'm going to do the same thing. Click on the 64-bit, move it over there too, and now you have mostly all the things which you need to work with MySQL. Then what you're going to do is press on next, and you can see that both of them are ready to download. And after they are downloaded, what I'm going to do is see if these are the server and also the shell. Make sure to use the newest version of each and every one and all the categories. And after those are complete, just press on next or execute. And before that, you can also select the product again, get back over here and select whichever filter you want to use. If you want to use a different type of filter, that's totally up to you. But from here, I'm going to suggest you to use any. So you can see that on default, it will be like this. So click on this enable the select feature page to customize product feature and click on next. And then what you're going to do is select on them, which are ready to download, and press on execute. And after those are executed, you will see that those will be put on progress. Okay, that means that all of the things or all of the service that you need through MySQL and also Oracle are being progressed and also downloaded on your PC. Now the next thing after all of them is downloaded, the server and the shell, the next thing I'm going to do is fix up our server. Click on next, and then you will see the select feature to install. Select the features which you want to use, and you can see the features which you selected are now selected, and you will be able to install them. Click on next again and press on execute again, and those will be installed like in a couple of seconds, because obviously all of the data and all of the service that you needed to download is already like downloaded, and now what it is doing is installing all of those on your PC so that it can be put on practical work. Now, after all of it is configured, press on next, and then you'll be able to select the config type, then the connectivity and TCP and all of those. Well, this is a bit different, okay? Because this is how you'll be able to configure all of your things and all of MySQL. First off, I'm gonna do is click on this config type, press on this dedicated computer or where you want to work with. Well, we can say that I can use development machine. So go down and you'll be able to use this development computer, which is also your machine. Make sure to click on this TCP IP because obviously you're going to need a server, and click on the port number, and you can see this is 3000 like 306, and also X protocol port is 33 like 30,000 like 33,060. Then make sure to open Windows Firewall ports for network access and keep it to be MySQL. And if you want to like select on this named pipe and shared memory, you can do that. But if you don't want that, just click on that option and press on this. So I'm going to do is show advanced and logging options. Okay, if you want that. So here what you can also do is change the server or change the TCP IP. Okay, because obviously all of the things are going through your specific IP. So here what I'm going to do is click on next, keep it on 3000. And then what you're going to do is going to be select on accounts and roles. But here's going to be our authenticating method. So I'm going to click on use strong password and all of those. But you can also select use legacy authentication method, which is retain MySQL compatibility. But here I'm going to keep it to be the same. Click on next. And then you'll be able to fix out your MySQL root password. So let's say my password is going to be QWERTYUIOP. And I'm going to do the same thing of repeat password. You can do that too. But here I'm going to do is type in something else. Let's say I'm going to type in password. And if it's still showing you this error, that these passwords do not match. Now, as we have put in our password, I'm going to click on next. And then you're going to keep it like this, standard system account. Click on next. And yes, grant full access. Now I'm going to click on next again. And then from here, what you're going to do is select a couple of things. So I'm going to do is select most of the things up till database. Okay, so I'm going to click on these. So I'm going to click on logs and configuration, whichever one you want. You can see that if it's not being selected, then you did some mistakes. Now from here, I'm going to click on execute, and you can see it will do all of the work on its own. And you will see that it will start the server to applying security settings and all of those, and click on finish. And after it is finished, you can see that it will look like this and everything is done. So the next thing we're going to do is open up the database. So if you want to do that, click on your start button, and from there what you're going to do is start for MySQL. You can see command line client. So I'm going to do is open it up, and I can see it will open up. Then I'm going to do is put in my password 34578, hit on enter, and now you can see that MySQL has opened up. Then what you're gonna do is like put in our commands in our database, because now we are all connected to MySQL. So we're gonna do is create our database in the CMD. So make sure to like open up CMD, but you will also see that it will open up directly. Then I'm gonna do is press on create database. Then I'm gonna put in, let's say, Tom Hank. Let's just type in Tom Hank. And the next thing I'm going to do is finish it off with semicolon. Then it will create our database in our server and keep track of it. So I'm going to click on, hit on enter, and now you can see query okay. One row is affected. So as our affected like row is affected in 0.00 seconds, so our database is now put and also in our SQL command. So this is how basically MySQL works. Then you can put in more database if you want to. Then what we're going to do is open up or install PopSQL. But here what we're going to do is make sure to minimize it and use it for later purpose. I'm going to do is cut this off too because I don't need it anymore. Then what I'm going to do is search for PopSQL, which is like kind of the same, but you're going to need it. PopSQL download. Click on this and you will see popsql.com will open up. From here, I'm going to click on download. After it is downloaded, I'm going to do is open it up. You can see that PopSQL is also opening up and the installation process has begun. Now, what I'm going to do is do a couple of things which you are going to require. So here, allow the access. Then what you're going to do is wait for it to open it up. And then what you're going to do is access into the database which you created with MySQL, because all of the servers are connected. Then let's say I'm going to do is sign it with Google or whichever email you want. Now, after it is like done, I'm going to click on return to PopSQL, open PopSQL. And as it opens up, so I'm going to do is like log in, and then let's say I'm going to type in the organization name. Let's say I'm going to put in Trilogy. How big is the company selected? Let's say I'm going to keep it to be 101 to 250. Click on create and then name the mail and all of those all together and send the invitation. But you can also skip this. So I'm going to click on skip, and then what's your role? Fix it. Let's say I'm going to do is data engineer or data analyzer. You can use whichever one you want. What do you find about wherever? Just select all of those and fill those up. Let's say I'm going to do is select on intermediate. Purchase live timeline to purchase PopSQL. I'm here for the free plan. If you want to use it for free, but we also have like free plans over here, you can use free plans and also just trying it out. That's like totally up to you. So I'm going to click on this, press on next. And then let's say, as we are going to do a lot of data collection, but if you want to use others, just click on others and press on OK. And then you're going to do is start querying. And after a while, you can see PopSQL has opened up, and it is a lot like the codings which you see in VSC, which is Visual Studio Code and all of those. The next thing what you're going to do is, if you are not signed in, then log in and all of those, then select on the database which you want to use, and then you're going to do it. But if it doesn't open up, what you're going to do is open it up with, individual database. You can connect your database like however you want to. Let's say if you go to query and you can press on run, it will run your database, which you can see from over here that it has run my database, which is over here, the name, and also all of those which are open on my PC. Well, this is a bit different, okay? So from here, you can see that we have 100 rows for the free plan. You can use 100 rows and all of those. Now, another thing you have to keep in mind that make sure to keep the CMD open, which is this command client, okay? Only then if you log in directly, it will take you or open up the database which you are working on. But if you want a new query, just press on new query and then add it up. And you also have this notebooks, DBT, schemas, and then dashboard queries and all of those. You also have search. You can search it up over here. And eventually this is already open. You can query, open it up. You can also import it from wherever you want, but if you don't want it, you can just keep it like this, and then you are good to go with MySQL and PopSQL. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome back to our lesson of MySQL again. In this lesson, we are going to learn about creating tables by using MySQL and PopSQL. Well, as MySQL is just the server which we are going to run our MySQL commands, so we are going to work on PopSQL, which is a lot like a text, a text editor, but which is directly connected to the internet, so that it is directly connected to the server too, and also works directly through that. So first off, if you want to open up or make a table, then obviously you're going to need a couple of commands in PopSQL, which is kind of like the same thing which we use in HTML and PHP process. So let's start off by typing in a couple of things. Let's say I'm going to type in int. Now you can see how int works. Well, int is going to be our whole number. Okay, so this is how the whole number works. Then we have is decimal. I'm going to type in decimal. I'm going to cut this off. You have this decimal too. Then we're going to do is open up varchar, which is like this, which is the string of text of length 1. Then varchar, then we have is blob. You can see blob is like this, which helps you to use binary language objects, stores large amount of data. Then we have is data directly like this, database, okay, which is something which is a lot similar, database to XML, but here I'm just going to use data. And then we have is timestamp. So make sure to keep it like this, STAMP. We have is timestamp. Now you can see that it is selected like this, and if you remove or don't hold shift anymore, it's not going to be like this, which is going to help you to place in the date and time, month, and all of those, which is used for recording. okay, recording the like database. Now if you want specific type of database, you can type in over here. Let's say I'm gonna type in 10 and maybe like 6. Okay, now we have our definite like database. Now let's say I'm gonna put in 300 over here, closing the bracket again, hit on enter, and then let's go to blob and type in our binary language. Then here I'm going to do is go down over here. You can put in a large amount of database, and if you want to put in date and timestamp, you can also do that too. So this is kind of like the basic. Okay, so let's say the types of data which you can like fill it with the attributes. So to create a table, then obviously you're going to need a couple of commands, which are through which PopSQL is going to get those commands and also make you the table. So let's say I'm going to do is create table. And I can see that it is a different color. That means that there is a command which is assigned to this. So let's say as I typed in create table, now we have our command. Now let's say I'm going to type in student or whichever one you want. Let's say student, which I'm going to use student, and then I'm going to do is open up my bracket. I'm just going to open up my bracket now, but later on I'm going to put in my codes. Then I'm going to do is put in a different column or different row. So to do that, I'm going to do is type in student ID over here. Let's say type in student name. We have our student name, but make sure to like put in underscore because it doesn't support like spaces. Student name as we put in that. So I'm going to type in int, which is like this, and then primary key. Make sure to keep that. So here I'm going to do is int, which was the code, and put in primary code, primary key, which you can see is like this. And then I'm going to put in a comma. Now I'm going to do is press like this, and which is the primary key, which has been, recognized, and then hit on enter. And then I'm going to do is open it up the name. Let's say I'm going to type in name, and let's say I'm going to make a varchar. And we have is our varchar or varchar. I'm going to do is put in the attribute. Let's say I'm going to put in 300 characters or 3000 characters. You can just put in the characters, and only then you will be able to put in the limited amount of data in this varchar. Okay, then you have to think like what amount of data you are going to put. But if you use like, let's say 30 characters, so it's going to take only 30 characters. So what I'm going to do is keep 30 characters, which is also the person, and I'm going to do is type in major. I'm going to put in varchar. Now as I've typed in varchar, which is also like this, I'm going to put the same thing over here. You can put in like that. Let's say I'm going to put the same thing over here. Let's keep it to be 30, 30 characters. And then we have our table structure. And after we have our, primary key, so I'm going to do is copy that again and put it over here. So I'm going to put our close of this primary key, Control X. I'm going to put this over here, hit on enter, press on primary key, which is over here. And I'm going to do is open up my bracket again, and let's say I'm going to type in student ID or student name, which is over here, student name. And then we have our student table or this table. So I'm going to do is close it off again. And to close it off, I'm going to do is first our bracket and then semicolon. Then we have our structure. Now you can see that this is a different color because it has recognized this, specific, line or specific structure. Then I'm going to do is, put in my queries. So if I want to put in my queries, obviously I'm going to need a couple of things. And after that is put, what you're going to do is run it. Now you can see that it has run and also given me the table and all of those all together. So as this thing didn't work, what I'm going to do is going to be adding in our more content or adding in more of our table. So let's start off with something else. So let's say here I'm going to put on and use the code of select, and then I'm going to hit on enter. And now you can see that this is a code, and I'm going to put on country code this time, country. And then I'm going to do is underscore and then put in code. And as I have my country code, I'm going to put in a comma, hit on enter. And then here I'm going to put in count. So here in count, you can see that this is already a command. I'm going to put in 1 inside of it. So there's going to be 1 country code on each of this table. Then I'm going to do is from is going to be from the city. So I'm going to put in this like this, from city. And as we have our city, I'm going to hit on enter. I'm going to put in group. group. We also like have that code or command group by 1. And as I'm done with that, I'm gonna do is put on the limit. So I'm gonna put in limit and then type in, let's say 20. That is going to be a 20 character. So I'm gonna put in semicolon, and that is the end of this part. So here I'm gonna do is use scatter charts. Okay, I'm gonna put in this, and I'm gonna put in scatter chart, scatter, and then I'm gonna put in chart. Now we have is our scatter chart. Here I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna copy all of it. Let's say from here I'm gonna press on Control C and paste it over here, Control V. Now we have our country codes and all of those too. But here what I'm gonna do is change it. So here on our country code, I'm gonna put in the year. So let's say I'm gonna put in independent INDEP underscore year. So as our year is this, I'm gonna put the count to 2, and from, let's say I'm gonna put in the country. Then what I'm gonna do is, let's say from here I'm gonna change it from group to where. Then I'm gonna put on independent year, which is this, from country, and where is independent. Press on V. Then we have is our content over here is the year. Then I'm gonna put in after, let's say 1900, and as I've put in my 1900, now I'm gonna group it by 1. So I'm gonna put the group over here and end it over here, or end the structure. And I'm gonna put is group by 2. So as I've put in group by 2, I'm gonna like end it with the semicolon 2, hit on enter, and I'm gonna put in another like structure, like double of this, and then I'm gonna put in line chart. Now I've put in my line chart. Now I'm gonna do is width. Okay, so C, hit on enter. I'm gonna put in my command over here, which is going to be a bit different this time, which is going to be with hours as chart hours as, open up your bracket. As I've opened up my bracket, now I'm gonna do is extend it a bit more, and inside of it I'm gonna put in my command. Let's say I'm gonna select, and then here what I'm gonna do is generate series. We have our generate series over here. Cut this off too. And I'm gonna put in my command inside of it. But first off, I'm gonna do is put in more commands over here, because obviously I need more database or data over here. So let's say I'm gonna do is date, TRUNC. Well, we have our date trunk. So here I'm gonna open up my parentheses or my bracket, and then put in quotation in between. I'm gonna put in hour, and as I've put in my hour, and I'm gonna do is put in a comma, and then let's put now. So as I've put in now, it's going to give me now result. Open up your bracket again, and as I have my bracket open, the next thing what I'm gonna do is put in a hyphen, and then I'm gonna put in my code and do the interval. Put in a quotation, single quotation, not a double quotation. Inside of it, let's say 2 days. Now here, as I have 2 days or 2 day, what I'm gonna do is hit on and space and 2 colons over here, not semicolon, 2 colons over here, and then type an interval. Now as I've typed an interval, I'm gonna put in another comma, hit on enter, and put in more data over here. Put in the same thing, data, date, TRUNC, date trunk. I'm gonna open it up, and here I'm gonna put in the same thing, which is over there, which is hour, but I'm not gonna put an interval anymore. So what I'm gonna do is copy this whole content up till here, Control C, put it inside. Now as this has been done too, I'm gonna put in a comma at the end. So next I'm gonna do is hit on enter, and I'm gonna obviously put this over here, Control C, Control V, today, and our trunk and also our interval. Then put in a comma if you want to, but I'm not gonna suggest you to use the comma in between. Then I'm gonna put is another command, which is going to be as hours.
So I'm not gonna like close off our bracket yet because I'm gonna need it later on. So I'm gonna do is put in another bracket and then close it off. So I'm gonna hit on enter as we also have our bracket over here. So after that, I'm gonna put in as our, okay, as our, then this is the end of this structure too. And we don't need to put a semicolon at the end. So I'm gonna put in another space. Here I'm gonna do is select. Now as I have my select, I'm gonna put in hours. Now as I've put in hours dot hour, so I'm gonna do is put in a comma, hit on enter. I'm gonna put in random, open up my bracket, and I'm not gonna put anything right now. So I'm gonna do is going to be putting up a star, which is going to be something like this. Now as I've put in that, I'm gonna put in 2000. Let's say I've put in 2000 as metric, because you're gonna need what attribute you're gonna put, so I need that as metric. So I'm gonna do is for hours again, or from hour, okay, and put in a semicolon. Now as that is the end, now I'm gonna put in other queries. I'm gonna put in other and then queries, but before that I need to put in double of this hyphen, only then it will turn into a command. And make sure to keep it capital because this is also case sensitive. Other queries, I'm going to put in select again, select, and the star over here, and put on, hit on enter, from country. Now I'm going to put in semicolon. This is the end of this structure too. Hit on enter. I'm going to put in select again, select, put in a star like this, put in a space in between them. Now from city, I'm going to do is where from. Hit on enter, where, country, code. So as I put in that, I'm going to do is hit on equal, and then put in whichever country you want to use. So I'm going to put in, let's say I'm going to open it up, and here I'm going to put in Asia. So as I've put in Asia, what I'm going to do is, as I'm done with this whole thing, let's run it. Now what I'm going to do is run it, and you will see that it is fetching my data. And then we have our table over here, which is explore SQL. And you can see SQL, this is showing me all of the content over here. But if you want to see the data and the chart over here, you can also see that how it has already made up my chart. And you can see that this is how it will look like. This is all our metric. So this is how it is actually going to look like. Okay. So this is basically how you'll be able to create your table in PopSQL. So let's move on to the next lesson. Welcome to our another lesson of MySQL. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how we can enter our data, such as our database online. So first things first, we are going to need a server. And for that server, we are going to use XAMPP. And first off, what you're going to do if you don't have XAMPP downloaded, first go over to your web browser and click on or just search for XAMPP. And it will take you directly to apachefriends.org. From there, you can see that we have this interface where you'll be able to download XAMPP for whichever OS you are using. If you are using like Mac, then you can use this XAMPP for OS X. Then if you are using Linux, then XAMPP for Linux. And obviously, we also have Windows. Here, make sure to download the bit or whichever bit your PC is, and then download it according to your desire, and also make sure to download the latest version of it. So here, just click on this download 64-bit because I have a 64-bit device, and it will directly open up. Then after it opens up, you can see that a pop-up screen like this will appear up. Then select wherever directory you want to download your file, which is XAMPP, and then click on save, and it will be saved. And after that, just install it on your PC or your device, and you will be able to start working with XAMPP. After it is downloaded, what you're going to do is open up the XAMPP software, and you can see that XAMPP is kind of like this. Then what you're going to do is open up the first two ones, which is Apache and MySQL. Make sure to click on it and install it in a perfect way. Then click on Apache and click on stop or start if it's already started. So you have to keep it on, and if it's not on, which is from the basic or from the start, so click on start and it will start in a couple of seconds. You can see that the status change detected and now it's running. Then what you're going to do is open up your MySQL too, and now you can see MySQL is also running. The next thing what you're going to do is open up any of the web browser. And as you can see that I have my web browser on. The next thing, to enter our data, we are going to use PHP MyAdmin. To use PHP MyAdmin, what you're going to do is search for localhost first, because obviously you're going to need a server. And obviously your server is already on. So search for local and host. Make sure it is working. Click on localhost and you can see that XAMPP is already on and your Apache server is turned on. So next thing what you're gonna do is add in PHP MyAdmin. So here, apply a slash or an oblique and then type in PHP MyAdmin and then slash again and hit on enter, and it will open up a pop-up page where you will be able to enter your data so that you can use for MySQL and also for the database. From here, you can see that my screen is now on and also PHP MyAdmin is on. First off, click on database from over here and you can see that it will take a bit of a time, and then you will see an interface like this will appear up. From here, what you're going to do is name up your database. Let's say I'm going to name my database to be JKL2. Okay, and here you're going to select the format, whichever one you want to use, but I'm going to suggest you to use the default one, which is like this, UTF-8 MB4. But you can also use Latin one, which is also very popular. So I'm going to go up. Okay, so I'm going to go up and find my Latin one, which is kind of over here, and make sure to select Swedish CI, which is kind of over here. And now I can use it. Okay, so after I've selected it, now what I'm going to do is go over to the structure. But to go over to the structure, what I have to do is first off create it. Now as it is created, the process or JKL2 has been created. From here, we are going to go directly to SQL, which is the main part. So here I'm going to do is first off go over to SQL. And in SQL, I'm going to type in my data. You can see this is loading, and this is where you are going to put in your command. But if you want to see the directory and the file, you can see database JKL2 has also been connected to the server and also is working. You can also change the name wherever you want. You can just click on structure and you can see that you will see the table name, number of columns, and all of those. First off, let's just name our table. Let's say I'm going to type in student. So I'm going to make a student table and a database according to that, and then select the number of columns which you are going to use. Let's say I'm going to select, or you can also type in, let's say I'm going to use 5. Now as I have 5 of them created, the next thing I'm going to do is click on create again. And after I have clicked on create, you will see that a database validation table will appear up on your screen. Here you're going to type in your own type of database. So I'm going to fulfill mostly all of them. So just stay on with this and just follow these steps. So let's say the name is going to be Jack, and here I'm going to type in int, which is the type. You can select whichever one you want, but I'm going to suggest you to use varchar. And here the length, let's say I'm going to keep it 100, and here I'm going to do the same thing, fix up a name, and let's say this is going to be Tim. And as I've typed in Tim, I'm going to use varchar on each and every one. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here because I kept it 100. Let's say I'm going to keep it 90. I'm going to keep it 92. And here I'm going to do is use another one. Let's say central column is going to be the username. So here, let me type in username. And here, instead of name, let me just put in last name. Last name, because that is where the last name is going to be. And instead of the name first, let's just put in a category. So I'm going to type in first name. And then we have our first name and also our last name. But here, make sure there is no space. And if you want to use space, make sure to put in an underscore. And as this is going to be our username, so here what we're going to put is going to be varchar. But you can also use text if you want to. But here I'm going to use varchar because I'm using it for the next last 2 ones. Here I'm going to do is make sure to fix another one. Let's say this is going to be the ID. And over here, I'm going to put in row. So now I have mostly all of them, and among all of them, what I'm going to do is use varchar on each and every one. You can see varchar is selected. On the last one, I'm going to keep it int if you want to, okay? So if you don't want it to be int, you can also change it to varchar. That's totally up to you. But make sure that the length and values are mostly the same, okay? So that you don't face any problems later on. Then the next thing what I'm going to do is open it up again, and after that, just press on create. And then preview your SQL if you want to get reassurance. So I'm going to put in roll over here to be 92. And here I'm going to put the int over here. And here I'm going to preview it, preview SQL. And it's going to take a bit of a time. And then after a while, you will see that this is how it will actually look like. But you don't have to worry that much, because obviously this is how it actually looks like when you like save it and also preview your SQL. But if you save it and go over to the structure, I'm going to close it off. I'm going to go over to structure. I'm going to press on OK. And it will open up the structure for me without any further ado and without any problem. So I'm going to go back again. Now when I preview it, like now you can see that we have our first name, last name, username, and ID is int. Well, int is integer and varchar is like totally different. But yet you can see that we have made our table over here. Well, this is not that complex when you use PHP-MyAdmin, because database is very easy to do, or like making a table is very easy to do in PHP-MyAdmin. Next thing I'm going to do is go over the structure again, our table structure, wherever you want to see it. So I'm going to do is go over back again, and you can also select whichever one you want to. So you can see we have name, type, collation, attributes, null, default, comments, extra, and action. Okay. Now, if you want to like edit, remove, or like make some customizations on this table, what you have to do is go over to JKL, which is like opened over here. Now you can also delete it if you want to. You can like edit it whenever you want to. Let's say I'm going to select on it, and then you can like delete it, and you can also keep it if you want to. But what you have to see over here is go over to browse. You can see an option of SQL and all of those. You can go over to SQL and see how it actually looks like. But if it's not showing, what you're going to do is go over to structure and like go over to SQL again, run SQL query, which is like already running. The next thing what you're going to do is, so from here, I'm going to click on this JKL2 again. And after that, what I'm going to do is select on the student. And when this opens up, now you can see that we only have our first name, last name, username, and ID. And if you want to put in role 2, you can also put that, but I removed it so that it becomes a lot more easier for you. And as you can see that we have no data over here because we didn't put any data inside of our table. So we have like 4 of the columns, but like no rows over here with no values. So let's go to insert. And then what you're going to do is put in the values. Let's say in varchar 1, you can also put in our value over here. Let's say I'm going to put in C, and in the last name, let's say put V, and then in username, let's say UB, and in ID, let's put in a number. Okay, let's say I'm going to put in 1, 1, 2, 3, and press on go. And you will see that it will be structured and also showing it to me in this codes. So what you have to do is, as it is running, then you can also insert it wherever you want to. Now you can also see that the 1 row is inserted. That means that the structure is now changed. Now from here, what you're going to do is create, okay? Create the PHP code. So I'm going to click on create PHP code, and it will take a bit of a time. And you can see that 0 rows are inserted first. And this code will be put in our main code or our main structure. Now, if you want to see it, what you have to do is go back again, go over to JKL2. Let's open it up and see if any changes are made. So I'm going to go over to students, and let's see the changes over there. Now you can see that a first name is C, last name is V, username is B, and in our ID we have our integer number, which is 1, 2, 3. And that is basically how you will be able to do that. Then you can also insert wherever you want from through SQL. So what you have to do is go over to SQL, and you can type in the codes over here too. So let's say I'm going to type in something. You can also press on insert and all of those, but you can also directly insert it over here. But what you have to do is add that content over here. First, I'm going to click on update. I can see the update, command has been put. You can also select it. You can see select, you have also insert, and we also have delete too. Okay. So next thing what you have to do is, if you want to insert more, then you have to go over to insert again. Let's say I'm going to go over to insert, and I'm going to put in more, press on OK. Let's say I'm going to go over here. Let's say I'm going to put in F, H, K, and then put in our integer value, which is going to be 23. And now I'm going to do is put on go. Now, as I press on go, I'm going to go over to SQL again, and I don't even have to do that because now you can see that FHK and also our integer number, which is 23, has been directly applied through PHP code. Now let's go over it as it has been input. So I'm going to go over the table students, which is over here. You can go through there too. And now you can see another row and another type of data has been appeared over here, which you can see F, H, K, and we also inserted previously, which was C, V, and B, and our integer number was 123, but here we have our integer number to be 23. Now, if you want to insert data through SQL, just codes, then first off, what you have to do is go over to SQL, and then from here, what I'm going to do is delete it if you want to. First I'm going to do is delete it. Now, as this is deleted, I'm going to click on insert again. So you have to need, you're going to need the structure of insert. And obviously, when you click on insert, it's going to give you directly the structure of how the commands actually work. So the first thing what we have to do over here is going to be changing our values. So to change our values, what we're going to do is cut all of these off. So as I cut all of them off, so I'm going to do is press on delete. Now we also see that we have our quotations. Okay. So first thing, let's say the first three of them is going to be characters and the last one is going to be integer numbers. So let's say over here, let's type in n. We have our n. Now I'm going to put in comma again, comma. Then here I'm going to put in quotation again. We have our quotation. In quotation, let's put K, quotation again, comma, quotation again, and let's say I'm going to put in K or maybe let's say J over here. Now, as we have three of our characters in the last one, what we're going to put is going to be our integer number. To put in our integer number, you don't have to put in like quotations because this is not character. So I'm going to type in a different thing. Let's say here, I'm going to type in 45 and close it with a quotation again so that all of them is like close. And as all of them are close, what I'm going to do is going to be go. So as I've typed in go, now you will see that it will appear like this. If you feel like see a format or an error like this, what you have to do is just apply another quotation. If it's like a mistake and see how it actually works, press on go and see if it works right now. Then you can see that it has been put. So next thing what you're going to do is create PHP code again. Then what you're going to do is create it and it will be put on your, structure. And what you're going to do is go over the table students again and see if it is applied. If it is not applied, then just have to apply it. Now you can see that the value which we put on the last one on our data table, N, K, and J has appeared over on our database table. Now, another thing you have to keep in mind that you can see that showing rows 0 to 2 and 3 total, where it took 0.0 seconds. Okay, so here you can see that we have select, which is also a command, and from, where it's getting the source from, and also the table is student. And you can see that in between them we have a star symbol. The star symbol is used so that it can show up all our attributes and all of our data. So if you want to change it and use specific type of category data, what you have to do is cut off this star symbol. So I'm going to do is cut it off from over here. Let's see if it works. If it's not working, you have to make it editable. So you can see current selection does not contain a unique column, grid edit, checkbox edit, copy, and delete features are not available. So if it's showing you that the features are not available, what you're going to do is click on edit first. And after you edit it, it's going to take you directly to the SQL interface. So here I'm going to do the formatting. So I'm going to click on this, delete the star, and let's say I want username. So I'm going to type in username. You can also put in first name if you want to. So I'm going to click it from over here and click on go. And when I press on go, you will see that it will directly show up the definite type of category data, which I actually need. Let's say I want to use a different one. So I'm going to do is cut it off again or just go back and see. Let's say I'm going to click on students again and open up the table. And here on my table, we also have our first name, last name, username, and ID. So I'm going to click on edit. And let's say this time I'm going to get ID. So I'm going to click on edit and I'm going to do is delete the star again and tap in ID. And I'm going to click on go. And when I press on go, you will see that it is only showing me ID right now. So this is basically how you will be able to fix your table and also get it whenever you want. Just like I told you, relatable SQL. Now, let's say I want a specific value from a specific person. Okay, let's say I want a specific value for F. So what you have to do is use the where tag or the where command. So I'm gonna click on edit first, and as I clicked on edit, so I'm gonna like remove this too. Let's say I'm gonna type in ID, and obviously you're gonna need the source, and to use or like get the source, we're gonna use the command from over here. Type in where, make sure all of them are capital, and then here where is going to be our first name, which you can see varchar 90, and you just click on first name, type in equal, and over here I'm going to type in equal, and after equal you're going to type in the one you want. So here I'm going to do is quotation, let's say F. I'm going to close it off too, and after I typed in F, I'm going to click on go. After I pressed on go, now I'm going to do is, you can see for F the ID is 23. So this is how you'll be able to get like specific number or the specific data value of a specific person from SQL. Now let's say we want a PHP code, and if you want to derive it to a PHP code, just click on this create PHP code, and it will open up as a PHP code, and you can use it, okay, on whichever text editor you're using so that you can get our final result. Then let's go over to our table again, and I'm gonna do is go over to table student, and here we're gonna go over the structure too, and then you can also like delete and also change it like however you want to. That's like totally up to you how you're gonna work with it. You can also change it, you can also drop it, and you can do a lot more. Let's say if you want to drop it, you can also click on this drop and click on OK, and all of the data which you wanted it will be dropped over here. You can see it like this. You can also make it unique, and if you want to like change it, you can also do that too. You can see that the add is 1 and also columns is after ID. Now as I've dropped it, now let's go over the table and see if there is any change. Okay, now you can see that I still have 3 of them, okay, but I have one of the column which is missing, which was the first name. Okay, so this is how you'll be able to drop in a specific category of data however you want to. But let's say you deleted it, and now how you'll be able to like increase one more. To do that, what you have to do is add in another one. First off, go off the structure, and after you go off the structure, you will see a part underneath. Let's say after where. So I'm gonna do is before. Okay, you can also put in between, but I want to put it at beginning. At beginning, and how many columns do you want to add? You can like type in the number. Let's say I want to add 6. That's like totally up to you. But if you want to add in 1, just click on 1, press on go, and you will see the data validation table will appear up. Let's say the first is going to be obviously our first name, integer, or like varchar, which is going to be our character. Let's say length is to be 90. I'm going to do is press on save, and this will preview on your SQL. First off, create. Now you can see that we also have like how it was previously and how it was made at first. Let's go over the table and let's see how it actually works. And you can see that we have our first table, but we don't have our data. So that is basically it, because how you'll be able to add in content. If you want to add in content, just go over to insert and then add in your content however you want to. You can see this is going to be our column type, and so here in our first name, what you're going to do is type in the varchar or whichever one you want. Let's say I'm going to type in K, and as I don't want any of the IDs and all of those, so I'm going to press on go, and you will see that it will be directly applied to the table. Let's just show it to you, and now you can see that one row is inserted and warning incorrect. So even though if it's like incorrect, what you have to do is go over to table student. Now let's see if it works. If it did not work, well, you can see that a couple of this data is now missing. So you have to keep in mind about it, like how it actually works and how you'll be able to put it. Okay, so I'm going to suggest you to be like very cautious from the beginning, because if you later on edit it, you might face a couple of problems. But you don't have to worry that much. You just have to go through this structure and then put in your own data like however you want to. And if you want to like edit it later on, just go over to insert and put in your own value however you want. You can put it over on rows and columns, the types, the functions, the null, the value, and all of those. Okay, so this is like, some people might think like this is like very complex, but it actually is not. You just have to go through these options and all of those a bit, and then you will get a hold of it. Okay, now if you want to delete the whole table, what you have to do is go over to operations, and at the bottom of operations you will find an option called
empty the delete table, which is like truncate, and empty the table and also delete the table, which is drop, just like we did a while ago. So let's say I'm gonna do is search for like empty the table or like empty the table, which is like empty. Okay, so first off, empty the table. I'm gonna click on this, press on OK, and I'm gonna do is go over the table again, and see I'm gonna go over the table, and now you'll be able to see that there is nothing. Okay, so this is basically how it works. But if you want to delete the whole thing, what you're gonna do is drop it. So let me just show it to you, like dropping it, like delete the table. I'm gonna drop, press on OK, and you will see that the whole table will be dropped and nothing will remain on student. Then you have to like see the first page of creating a data validation table again. So this is basically how data validation works and table like data entry works by using PHP and also MySQL, and both of them obviously are connected. Then you're going to do the same thing over and over again, like name the table, the number of columns, and then add it through SQL. Then the queries and import, export, you can also do that. Later on, edit it and also go through SQL and put on those commands and put it on your table so that you get most of the data on the table. So thank you for watching this video and hope to see you in my next lesson.